Good evening. I hereby call to order the action session of the Board of School Commissioners for Thursday, February 27th. The colors this evening will be posted by the JROTC cadets from Shortridge High School. Would you please stand for the posting of the colors?
Mark time, march! Color guard, up! Ready! Face! Freeze, set! March!
Would everyone please join me in saying the I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Harry! March! Up, bow! Face! Freeze, set! March! Sir, the color guard is present. Request permission, post color.
Please post.
Thank you, sir. Harry, colors. Post. Freeze, set, arms. Order, arms. Up, bow, face. Post. Ready, face. Forward, march.
Thank you to our cadets from Shortridge High School. Mr. Mulholland, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Arnold,
Present.
Commissioner Gore,
Present.
Commissioner Moore, Commissioner Slack,
Here.
Secretary Collins,
Here.
Vice President Hawkins,
Present.
President O'Connor.
Here. Thank you. We'll now adopt the agenda for tonight's meeting. The agenda was reviewed on Tuesday and reflects all necessary modifications or additions. Reviewing the agenda are the requests for any changes to the agenda as presented. Hearing none, I'll note that item 8.04, an update to the Indy Chamber Partnership MOU, was added following Tuesday's agenda review session. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda is adopted. Before we begin tonight's agenda, we'd like to introduce our student performance. Each month, we invite a student group to perform during our action session to showcase the tremendous talent we have here at IPS. Tonight, we welcome the elite ensemble from Crispus Attucks High School under the direction of Matthew Jackson. The ensemble recently performed for the reopening of the Madam Walker Legacy Center during the Martin Luther King Jr. celebration. Tomorrow night, you can hear them in concert with the Arsenal Technical High School Choir at Allen Chapel AME Church for a Black History Month celebration. This evening, they will be performing Stand Up from the movie Harriet. Please welcome the Crispus Attucks Elite Ensemble.
'Cause I'll fight with the strength that I've got until I die. That's when I'm gonna stand up. Take my people with me. Together we are going to a brand new home. Far across the river, can you hear freedom calling? Calling me to answer. Gonna keep on keeping on. And I know what's around the bend might be hard to face 'cause I'm alone. And I just might fail, but Lord knows I'll try. Just stars fill up the sky. Stand up, take my people with me. Together we are going to a brand new home. Far across the river, can you hear freedom calling? Calling me to answer. Gonna keep on keeping on. I'm gonna stand up, take my people with me. Together we are going to a brand new home. Far across the river, can you hear freedom calling? Calling me to answer. Gonna keep on keeping on. I'm gonna stand up, take my people with me. Together we are going to a brand new home. Far across the river, can you hear freedom calling? Calling me to answer. Gonna keep on keeping on. I can feel it in my bones.
Let's give them another round of applause. What a great performance. During each month's action session, we'd like to take time to recognize outstanding individuals or groups that have made significant contributions to the district. Superintendent Johnson, if you'd like to join me at the front of the stage, I'll ask Vice President Hawkins to introduce tonight's honoree.
Thank you, President O'Connor. Tonight, we are recognizing Beyond Monumental for their outstanding dedication and service to the students, teachers, and families of Indianapolis Public Schools. Accepting on behalf of Beyond Monumental tonight is Jed Cornforth, the Executive Director, Casey Collins, the Director of Operations and Community Outreach, and Ashley Haynes, a Beyond Monumental board member. Beyond Monumental is a nonprofit that actively supports youth health and wellness programs with an emphasis on running. Since 2012, through the organization's Monumental Kids movement, they've served more than 11,000 IPS students, educating them on the benefits of exercise, proper diet, and dedication to healthy living. That includes helping students participate in the CNO Financial Indianapolis Monumental 5K with free admission. In partnership with local running retailer Athletic Annex, they've donated more than 2,000 pairs of new running shoes to students through the Buy One, Give One shoe donation program. Additionally, Beyond Monumental has generously generously given hundreds of thousands of dollars over the last decade, including a record-breaking gift of $130,000 last year. Their funds are supporting the running program, the purchase of elementary and high school athletic equipment, and the district's overall health and wellness initiatives. Mr. Cornforth, Mr. Collins, and Ms. Haynes, we thank you and Beyond Monumental for your tremendous support and dedication to the students and families of IPS.
Thank you, Jed, Casey, and Ashley, and the entire Beyond Monumental team for your extraordinary efforts and tremendous support for the IPS community. Moving to Section 3, opening comments. Do any commissioners wish to offer opening comments this evening? Commissioner Arnold.
This is just for you, you know. In addition to attending all of the meetings that have been held at Stephen Foster related to Restart and Innovation, in the past month, I've had the privilege to attend the following events. The Indiana Education Association Martin Luther King Jr. Luncheon, where several of our outstanding students received well-deserved recognition. The Edison School for Visual and Performing Arts Black History Celebration, George Washington High School Dollars for Scholars Taste of the West Side fundraiser, Washington versus Attucks basketball game, where I was privileged to see Brent Freeman and Wesley Young in attendance, the Community Appreciation Breakfast held at Crystal House to thank partners for their support on the return of Hal, Manuel, and Emma Donnan to the IPS family. In addition, I've been able to visit and tour the following schools: Edison School of the Arts, Daniel Webster School 46, William Penn School 49, Super School 19, Eleanor Skillen School 34, George Washington High School, and William McKinley School 39. I would like to give special thanks to Jose Juarez, my FACE liaison, for making all the arrangements and accompanying me on these visits. Thank you.
Any other commissioner comments this evening? Commissioner Slack?
Yes, I'll be remiss not to talk about Black History since we are still in Black History Month, and I feel like that we are leaving it without any recognition. I just want to say that in the spirit of racial equity, no one is born to hate one another. No one is born to hate someone because of the color of their skin or their background or their religion. People must learn to hate, and if you can learn to hate, you can learn to be taught to love. And it's more natural than the human heart than to be just the opposite. So I want us to continue to focus on our racial equity and to continue not to be remiss about the spirit of being Black or, you know, having brown and Black people in our that we teach every day. Our teachers are being recognized for that. I've seen many IPS schools across IPS just recognize Black heritage, and I'm appreciative to be here and supportive of that.
Thank you, Commissioner Slack. Any other comments? We'll now move to the public comment section. We will now receive public comment from those individuals who've signed up to offer comments to the board this evening. I do want to note several changes to our normal public comment process as a result of the number of speakers, signed up to speak this evening. With 71 commenters, and in my 5 years, that is by a large margin the most I have experienced. I refer to Commissioner Arnold or Commissioner Gore if they remember more than 71 during their tenure. I am, with 71 commenters signed up this evening, I am limiting each speaker to 2 minutes speaking time. While board policy states that public commenters are allowed 3 minutes to offer comments, it also states that the board chair may further limit the total amount of time devoted to public comment based on the number of persons wishing to speak and the length of the board's agenda. I do not like to reduce the opportunities to hear from the public, but given the high number of speakers tonight, I feel the accommodation is necessary in the interest of conducting an efficient and effective meeting tonight. A timer will start when you begin your comments, and I ask that you briefly conclude your remarks when you hear the timer go off. While we normally offer some leeway in finishing your remarks after your time expired, tonight we will be strictly enforcing the time limits so that we ask you to finish your sentence and end your comments as soon as you hear the timer. I will remind speakers that the comments should be directed to the board collectively, should not be abusive or disruptive, and should not address a topic that might be of a confidential nature or that would compromise the impartiality of the board. I will also remind our speakers that while the board is happy to receive your comments, we will not respond or answer any questions at this time. Also, due to the number of speakers, we will take all comments during section 3 rather than later in the agenda. Please come to the podium and begin your comments when your name is called. Those who are brief and succinct will have my eternal gratitude. Mr. Harris, would you please call our first, I believe we're calling 5 speakers at a time this evening, is that correct?
Yes.
So as your names are called, please line up at the podium.
So I'll be calling speakers in groups. So when you hear your name called, please line up near the podium and remember to state your name when it's your turn to speak. I'll be calling our first group in a group of 3. First speakers are Catherine Langdon, Mark Nardo, and Kim Langhorn, if present.
They're clinging.
These are our students, I believe, who are participating or have participated in the monumental, so maybe we should give them a round of applause as they enter the room.
Do they want them to get up? Keep going.
Good evening. My name is Kathy Langdon. I'm the physical education and health coach for the district. I've run this program for 8 years, and this is an example of what this program has done for us. Every school actually wanted to bring a group of kids, but we had a limit because there's a fire marshal rule, right? Anyway, we are beyond grateful for the partnership that continues to be monumental for our students and staff throughout the district. For the past 8 years, your organization has stayed true to the mission on educating our students about the benefit of exercise, proper diet, and healthy living. Your mission and vision of growth continues and comes from ranging from kindergarten kids all the way to seniors in high school to adults. I wanted to tell you a little secret, though. Not only educating our students on the health, there's other things that are going on. A student turns in a writing assignment and says that they're learning about healthy eating and they want to go into the profession of health. Students telling their teachers the reason they come to school is because Beyond Monumental program and because they want to be around their coach. Students getting their families involved over the weekend. Students showing off their shoes, saying how much they love them. Students telling their families about My Plate. Who knows about My Plate? And what they should be eating at the dinner table. Students wearing medals in April because it reminded them of the day, the best day of their life, they told their teacher. A student tells a teacher that he once saw his mom's smile was so big because she finished the race with him. The student that told a teacher that his mom was proud of her for the goal that she set out for the race. We can't forget about the students that say that they don't like running. Your generous support helps change lives, and thank you very much for all you have done. I appreciate it.
I want to thank the Board of Commissioners, Superintendent Johnson, for allowing me the opportunity to speak here tonight. My name is Mark Nardo. I'm the very proud principal of IPS George Washington Carver Montessori School 87, and I am also a proud participant in the Monumental Marathon. I have participated for the last 4 years, and our school has had a running club for the same number of years. I power walk with my students. I don't like to run unless I'm being chased. So one of the things I am very proud of is that we have students that are active and that are healthy and that are participating in this every year. And I want to thank those that sponsor this event, including Kathy Langdon, who deserves all of our support and respect, and all of the students and the principals and the staff and teachers that participate in the IPS Monumental Marathon every year. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kim Langhorn. I teach 6th grade at Meredith Nicholson, School 96. Meredith Nicholson has participated in the Beyond Monumental for 6 years. I've been the lead for 5. I want to thank Beyond Monumental because the running club has become a tradition at our school. Every year when we go back to school, the kids and the parents are like, when is running club going to start? When is running club to start? And I think on the bus tonight, one of the kids said, when is running club going to start? It's more than just health and fitness. It brings our whole community together as far as our parents, our staff, everybody that's running. I want to highlight a couple of my students, Juan and Jonathan, that are in the front. They have ran with us for 5 years. They started in kindergarten and they're in 4th grade. That just, in true commitment, now their whole family is involved with running club as parents are standing on the line. And one other story, it does bring confidence and pride with the kids. They do wear their medals in April. And Daniel, that's there on the bus ride down in November, he's pulled out of his pocket and he had all of his medals with him. And I said, Daniel, we're not going to run with all those medals, but on the bus on the way home, he showed my medals. It means so much for our school community. It's more than just a run in November. And I want to thank Superintendent Johnson. She was there on that very cold November day, cheering on all the kids and congratulating them at the finish line. That means a lot. We're blessed to have you as superintendent. Thank you.
Thank you again for all you've done.
One little tiny one up front.
Our next group of speakers are Anna Delgado, Naomi Olivia, Marciela de los Santos, Alita Sandoval, and Eva Moran, if present.
Good evening, members of the board. Good evening, members of the board. My name is Genesis, and I am here to speak behalf of my mom, Anna Delgado. My mom felt like she couldn't be here today because she didn't want my younger sister to get pushed back from her teachers. My mom said that the main problem was that last year my little sister's teacher got sick. The school didn't handle it well. My sister didn't have a teacher for the most of the year, and it stressed her out. We support the change of the innovation because we want more focus on the academics for my little sister. Alicia sat down with us and asked our opinion, which has never addressed before. We like that she is considering our voice in the process. Thank you.
Good evening. The three of us are students at CFI 2 here in downtown Indianapolis. I am Eva Moran, this is Ava Shula, and Sophie Peterson. We have been working on our 8th grade community project. As part of community project, we research the topic and then take action around this issue. The topic we chose to act upon is the gender wage gap, and through this research, we found that women earn 79 cents for every dollar earned by men. And that mothers, including those who never left the workforce, get paid less than other women. While many things contribute to the wage gap between men and women, we found that unpaid family leave is one huge factor that creates income inequality for women. Upon birth of a child, women in the U.S. usually take between 6 to 12 weeks of unpaid leave to medically recover from the birth. While federal FMLA guidelines protect them from losing their jobs, it does not provide for continued wages during this time.
Did you know that Sweden has a national policy for maternity leave, and the parents of the child get a total of 16 months paid maternity leave? Canada also has paid maternity leave after you have worked within your job for a certain amount of time. The United States is far behind other countries in this regard, though some states, such as California, have implemented paid family leave policies. There are plenty of U.S. companies that also offer this to their employees in an effort to retain employees after the birth of a child. We were surprised to learn that IPS offers no paid leave to new mothers. While this is true of most school districts in the state of Indiana, we see this as an opportunity for IPS to lead the way for other school districts across the state and nation who don't offer paid maternity leave. We propose that IPS should offer a minimum of 2 weeks paid family leave for all employees. While more time would be ideal, we understand that fiscal challenge of funding the full 6 weeks. We believe that 2 weeks will help the employees bridge the gap between their sick leave and their medically necessary recovery time.
Thank you.
Our next group is Sarah Robertson, Anna Hernandez, Sherry Holmes, Shawanda Tyson, and Don Jerica Walton. Denise Ford, Sasha Robertson, Anna Hernandez, Sherry Holmes, Shawanda Tyson, Don Jerica Walton, and Denise Ford.
Good evening, Superintendent Johnson and members of the IPS Board of Commissioners. My name is Dondrika Walton. I have 2 children that attend PLA 103. I was absolutely unsure about things when School 103 was being restarted. I have lived near this school building for over 20 years since I was only 12. I wonder how it would fit into our neighborhood. I wonder if the leadership in the building would bring kids up or tear them down. I wasn't a believer, but today 2 of my children attend PLA 103 and my oldest son attends Phelan's High School. I can now say with certainty that I'm grateful Phelan Leadership Academy is part of our community because they have helped our neighborhood and our children. Before Phelan came in, the school was not welcoming. Today, I see a total culture turnaround. They greet these kids when they come in now, rain, sleet, or snow. These babies know as soon as they arrive for school that is a new day. They have partnered with the apartments where I live because so many 103 students live in the complex. They have hosted ice cream socials, pizza parties, movie nights for the students. They offer after-school tutoring at the complex office for students who need help with their homework. They show a lot of appreciation for our kids in the community. Last year, it must have been 3 or 4 times that I walked my children to the bus stop in the morning to find the staff set up with a table handing out donuts. The school sends home weekend snacks and food for the children. They offer to clean the kids' uniform at school and provide uniforms and supplies for children who do not have them. They do not want food or resources to be a reason that the children have a bad day or can't focus in class. The leadership at School 103 is also very receptive and open to helping out. I'm a part of a group of parents working to get a food pantry at the school. When we reached out to Mr. Reimer because we needed space, he quickly found us and gave us more than we needed. He's been so hands-on and supportive, replying to emails quickly and helping us stay motivated. This school celebrates kids, they praise children so well, and they balance it with high expectation. It's a game changer for the students, hearing how great
Thank
they
you. Your
do
time
and
has
how
expired.
capable they are. Thank you all.
Good evening, Superintendent Johnson and members of the IPS Board of Commissioners. My name is Sasha Robertson, and I am here tonight representing a group of parents and community members who sent you a letter earlier this month urging you to partner with schools and school operators that are achieving better results for children of color when compared to their white peers. While there were 12 signatures on that letter, we now have 155 additional signatures from IPS parents and residents who are concerned about the troubling opportunity gap that exists in our district and state. To remind you of the letter we sent, we mentioned that we toured many schools that have data showing better results for children of color, and we are asking that the district to act with a sense of urgency to grow what is already working with Black and brown kids in our city. The schools that are working included George Washington Carver, School 87, Paramount School of Excellence, Phelan Leadership Academies, and Crystal House Academy. All of these schools have the following things in common: strong, present school principals who support their staff, excellent supportive teachers with a model to coach new or inexperienced teachers, celebrations of student achievement, transparency with students, parents, and community, family resources, and social, emotional, English language learners, special education, and trauma-informed support for kids who need it. While we identified the things I just listed, we are asking the district to partner with a highly regarded research institution or university to study the best practices and supports being offered in these schools and how they can be implemented into IPS. Finally, the committee members who sent the letter would like to request a meeting with IPS leadership to discuss what we observed in these schools when we toured so we can work together to increase the outcomes of our children of color. We look forward to connecting with you soon to have that meeting. Thank you.
Good evening, Superintendent Johnson and members of the IPS Board of Commissioners. My name is Sherry Holmes. I am an IPS mom. You might remember me because this is my 3rd time speaking at the board meeting about the need to address the opportunity gaps that exist in this district. When we moved to Indianapolis as a part of the Black and brown community, I first wanted to know about the schools my children would be educated in because I felt lost because we were new to Indiana. And I wanted to make sure I did all I could for my children. In that initial search to find the best place for my kids to receive a public education, I can tell you there were many things I did not know and wasn't searching for. Things I would have been searching for if I knew. What you don't know can hurt you. That was what I want to be sure when searching for with my kids. Sorry. Oh my goodness. Okay. Because I joined this committee, this researching the schools and achieving better results for Black and brown students in Indianapolis. I know more, and in this case, knowledge is power. But it shouldn't be that way. I should be able to pick my public neighborhood schools and rest assured that my kids will get a great education regardless of their race or our income level. That isn't the reality for most IPS families, if they know it or not. This committee requested that you grow very specific educational models in the IPS that you partner with to have a reputable research institution to find the secret to the success of these programs, because we care about supporting struggling schools and we care about the education all children in IPS receive. One of those schools this committee is requesting that the IPS per use agreements is IPS 87. This is a school where my son Peyton attends. When I first toured this school, I toured it alone and originally liked it because it reminded me of a school I went to as a child. It felt like home. I realized feeling this way because the school has a great leader and offers teacher support, such as 2 teachers in every classroom. Thank you, and I hope you're willing to discuss this with me and the committee so we can do this together. Thank you. Have a great day. Oh, I need this.
Good evening, Superintendent Johnson and members of the School Board of Commissioners. My name is Denise Ford, and I've been here before advocating for resources for School 48. I am now advocating for all of the children in School 48 to have the same education as Ms. Eva Moran, the young lady that just spoke up here from the Center of Inquiry number 2, because she could present her article about Family Medical Leave Act and how it impacted our teachers here in Indianapolis in particular, and our children have graduated from that school and not been able to do that. I can't imagine a 12-year-old child unable to read in 2020. And yet we've had a whole generation go through School 48 with a failing outcome. I respectfully ask, my speech is a lot different and it is written, and I respectfully ask that School 48 be restarted, and I ask that Failing Leadership Academy also be the operator. I had a chance to visit a school that has such a wonderful atmosphere and culture and staff that seem pleasant and approachable, which is something that lacked at School 48. So along with failing academics, we also had a culture that made the kids scared, not just of each other, but of the adults that were there to teach them. So I respectfully request School 48 be restarted, Failing Leadership Academy be appointed as that operator, and in my email that I have already sent, there's a third request that I won't mention here for sensitivity issues, but I hope that one will also be honored. Thank you for your time.
Our next group is Joe White, Tamika Shelton, Shanice Downing, Guadalupe Lapita Carrera, and Melissa Dam, if present.
Good afternoon, Superintendent Johnson and members of the Indianapolis School Board Commissioners. My name is Joseph White, and I have a daughter that attends the pre-K at School 48. My wife passed away 2 years ago, and she used to be a bus driver for IPS for Durham at the time for about 15 years. And she would have been probably the person that would have made all of her educational things and stuff like that. So, and she probably would have known, since she actually drove for 48 and for other schools, that it was a failing school. I didn't know at the time, so I didn't know at the time when I put my daughter in the school that it was a failing school for 6 years. My daughter is a 28-weeker and is in behind the development a little bit. So I need a school that can accelerate her growth. She's already been behind. She was on bed rest for a year after she was born, and I need a school that can accelerate her education. And I don't think that School 48 can do that from the K through 6th grade. Right now, you're saying with these low these failing grades and stuff for the past 6 years, I do believe innovation would be the best way for this school. Now, whether or not my daughter is going to attend this school or not, I do not know. I can tell you one thing. If it's not restarted, she will not be going to that school. I will not allow that. My daughter deserves the best. Her mother would not accept that. And I'm not going to accept it either. So if the school is not restarted, my daughter will not be attending there, and I will feel sorry for the kids that will be attending there because I have went to the model school. I went to Phelan, they let me tour there, and it's a great atmosphere there, great. And that's probably going to end up being my choice, period, point blank, whether or not you restart the school or not. Thank you.
Good evening, Superintendent Johnson and members of the IPS Board. My name is Shanice Downing, and I have 2 children at Matchbook Learning at IPS School 63. My daughter Riley is a kindergartner, and my son Xavier is in the 7th grade. I know there are some parents who may be experiencing an innovation restart next year, and my advice to them is to be patient. If you are, you may end up loving it. My son Xavier attended School 63 before it became Matchbook Learning. When innovation was announced, I was skeptical. New teachers knew everything. My question was, will Xavier just be getting the same thing under a different name? I'm happy to say the difference Matchbook made was real. Xavier did not want to go to school before, is now excited about learning. He talks about things he's learned, and he loves his teacher, who I can tell take a deep interest in him. It's not just the teachers. The principal, Dr. Swan, is often seen interacting with students. You can tell she loves her job and cares about Xavier and other kids. I also appreciate the technology and the focus on computer-based learning. It's helping Xavier be prepared for the future when technology will continue to grow. Then there's Riley, who loves school so much she wakes up on Saturdays disappointed she won't go to school. It says something when a child loves her teacher, Miss Clark, so much that she misses her on the weekend. As a parent, I know how important it is to make your own decision about what works for your child. Will innovation be right for your student? That's up to you. But what I can say is I was scared at first and had a lot of questions. But I'm glad IPS brought Matchbook to School 63 because my kids now love learning. And as a mom, that makes me very happy. Thank you for listening to me.
Good evening, Superintendent Johnson and the council members. My name is Isabella Chitwood, and Mr. White here is going to be reading my mother's speech, Melissa Dahm.
Okay, tonight she wants to talk about her granddaughter, Emily. Her mother fears speaking, so she won't be able to speak to you guys tonight. But Emily has ADHD and is on medication that she's supposed to be taking. From 8:45 in the morning, another pill at 1 o'clock. Last year, the school, which is School 48, was not giving her her 1 p.m. medication. They was giving it to her at 11 at lunchtime because it was more convenient for them. Her mother went up there several times to try to change them from doing this, and they would not. So this year, they just stopped sending the second pill altogether. Well, this actually puts her medicine behind because most of the time that she would do this would be time for her to get home and do her homework, which would be around 5. So now by this time, the medication has worn off, and she usually cannot start her homework until after 6 p.m. And this for her is a very big issue. She feels like, and as advocating for her granddaughter, she feels that this is another example that the school should be restarted. And that also because of the communication, because they did not let her know that the SQR review was going on. They can tell her about football games and dances and stuff like that, but they can't tell her about those things. So she said, even though that they have great teachers there, she feels that her grandkids' education is more important, and she feels like the school should be restarted and innovation should be tried. Thank you.
Our next group is Lavenia Carter, Olivia Whitaker, Josanne Laptise, Trinitria Tipton, and Tisha Chapman, if present.
Good evening, Superintendent Johnson and members of the IPS School Board. My name is Lavenia Carter. I've been up here speaking before you before the last time I had my son. He's a special needs child. I carry him where he needs to go. But tonight, I decided to come by myself. I'm here tonight not only to share my concerns with you, but to urge you to restart School 48, as you've heard from multiple parents. The school cannot continue to run this way it currently is. In addition to being a mom, I work at a public school system in Indianapolis. This makes what I am about to say more troubling to me. I know that educators and public school staff, we want the best for all kids in our care, not just the favorites. Earlier this month, I sent you all an email letting you know that my daughter has been going through bullying, verbal abuse. Nothing has been done about it. On Wednesday, February the 12th, which was my mother's birthday, she went up to the school and she met with Mr. Hinton, Miss Andrea, when it was quoted that it's being known that I've been down to the school board and complaining about this. When I asked exactly what is the Mia doing to be a disruption in class, the principal couldn't tell my mother what she was doing. He just deterred the question. My mother voiced her concerns about an individual in the class that had said a cuss word, and ultimately nothing was done. The following day, my child got into a fight with this particular student. A child slapped her glasses off her face while Mr. Williams held her back. Mr. Williams is the so-called behavior coach. So you think you tough now, is what he said to my child. And then he picked up the phone, and then when I talked to him, he began to yell and scream as though I'm not an educated adult as he is. Please restart this school. My daughter had a Valentine's Day gift delivered to her, and they let us sit in their office for 10 minutes. She's being bullied, she's being retaliated against, and I won't stop. If my daughter doesn't go to School 48 next year, I'll still stand before you.
Good evening, Superintendent Johnson and members of the IPS Board of Commissioners. I am Trinitria Tipton. I have a deep connection with Lewis B. Russell School 48. I attended 48, from kindergarten through 5th grade. My teachers were very much involved. I had hands-on learning and ongoing support. I remember the names of many staff members because they had a positive impact not only on my life, but my family too. When I began to have my own family, my 2 children were actively enrolled in School 48 as well. There were a lot of negative changes at the school that I didn't expect, and I realized that it was no longer the same school that I went to. There was a lot of lack of communications to the parents, to the office, just basically, from the parents to the office, to the students, to the teachers, their support it needed to be bridged. So the basic needs, like for picture day, I had no idea until I got a sample packet in the mail. I'm like, whoa. And so my son was in kindergarten, acting not himself. He was upset every day, but, in the end, I recently toured Phelan Leadership Academy because I was interested what School 48 could change. And so I was impressed with what I learned there and the conversations that I had with these different teachers and staff support. And so without hesitation, I would recommend any student to go to Phelan because of the love and, home support. It's like family when you enter the building because of the secretary. That's the face and voice of the building. And it just cheers you up a little bit knowing that you can get a hello, good morning back. So thank you all for listening to me tonight.
Olivia, I attended 48 like a couple of years ago. My bad. I attended 48 a couple of years ago, and while I was there, I got bullied. I was forced to fight. I witnessed kids getting thrown against the wall, things that shouldn't have been done by teachers, and it's getting worse. I witnessed a kid get bullied the other day. I heard about it. People been coming to me, telling me about it, and I honestly think the school needs to get restarted, but I don't really know. I had a bad experience. It got worse throughout the years as we transitioned principals, having multiple substitute teachers, not getting teached. It was a bad, stuff like that. But yeah, I just think that school needs to get restarted ASAP. It's pretty bad. And thank you for listening to me.
Good evening, Superintendent Johnson and the members of the IPS board. My name is Tisha Chapman. I have two children that go to IPS School 48. They are a first grader and a second grader. My daughter was texted for dyslexia and she was supposed to be in special reading classes. She was in them for around 2 weeks before she told me she stopped pulling out of her classes, or stopped being pulled out of her classes to go to her reading class. The school never notified me of these pullouts. I am a product of IPS and I am also dyslexic. I don't want my children to ever go through any of the things I have experienced. I'm going to do everything in my power to help my children, but I need the support of the school as well. I just want my children to have the best education and be on track. I refuse to let my daughter have the experience that I had. And I don't think she's getting the things that she needed at School 48. She gets frustrated with homework, she shuts down, she cries, and it breaks my heart. My son is not getting the help that he needs either. His grades are slipping. He's never brings home homework. My daughter has a packet weekly, and my son's teacher often says she forgets to send home homework. He was on track before he came to School 48. My son is very smart. I can show him something one time and he gets it. I am here tonight because I went to a tour at Phelan Academy, and I think that the students at 48 would benefit from the change.
Good evening, Superintendent Johnsons and members of the IPS Board of Commissioners. My name is Susan Laptis. Two of my children are at an Applied Behavior Center but my daughter attends Ignite Achievement Academy, otherwise known as School 42. I found this school because my son originally attended Ignite's developmental preschool. Every time I had to go pick him up or visit his classroom, I was warmly welcomed by staff. I chose this school for my daughter because I wanted to become a well-rounded child, and I was looking for schools that allowed kids to express themselves with different activities and experiences. I found that in Ignite, my daughter loves art so much. In fact, my refrigerator is cluttered with drawings of hot cocoa and popcorn and stick figures. I didn't want her at a school that didn't have fundings for this kind of program. My daughter has been even enrolled in dance, and she's happy, and she will have something she loves to keep her occupied. Ignite teaches my daughters things that other elementary schools are not teaching, such as financial literacy. It's important that my daughter knows that money does not grow on trees. At anything that mommy and daddy get her, they have to earn. She had some bumps in the road last year when our family was in the process of getting her father here to the United States. She even pulled the fire alarm once. But the school communicated with me and talked to me kindly. They never made me feel like I was a bad parent or blamed her behavior on me.
Our next group is Adrian Simmons, Zyrayli Rivals Montiel, Angela Cordova, Isabella Cordova, and Sheena Roach, if present.
I'm Adrian Simmons, and good evening, Superintendent Johnson and all board members. I'm representing Edison 47 and the School of the Arts, and I'm new to Edison this year, and I have two kids there. We came from a charter school, and it's been the best thing we've ever done. That was the best move we could have ever made. The kids, they wake up in the morning excited to come to school now. I am a parent who is active in my children's school, and I volunteer at the school. Edison has strong academic programming, and their art program is tremendous. The classes, like for elementary kids, I've never been to a school where the younger kids can do dance class, drumtastics, theater. My kids are so excited about things like that. So I'm glad we're at Innovation School because frankly, I wish it was around when I was younger. I mean, I'm excited that they're there. The teachers go above and beyond for the kids, and frankly, the parents too. I mean, if you have any issues or concerns with grades, kids, you know, anything that's going on, you can come to any one of them in that school, and they will sit down with you and straighten it out. Thanks.
Good evening, members of the School Board Commission. My name is O'Reilly Rivas, and I'm in 8th grade. Recently, about a year ago, I moved to Edison School of the Arts, and to be honest, I don't regret my decision one bit. When parents think of schools, most of the time, they think of all schools are the same, with the same subjects, activities, learning environments, and opportunities. Well, let me tell you that that's not the case here. You see, a lot of schools have different things to offer, such as Edison. Edison offers great opportunities to every student, including me. I moved from my previous school about a year ago because I wasn't happy there. I didn't feel comfortable or safe, and I wasn't being my true self. So I looked for a different school, and I found Edison. Ms. Guthrie helped me to get into the school, so I thank her very much for this opportunity, and I moved here on January 16, 2019. From the first day at Edison, I felt like I belonged and that I was in a community. The school made me pick 2 classes for extra curriculum, and I chose theater production and acting for film because I thought that they were easy classes. Yet I didn't expect to have a passion for them, which is why Edison is a pretty great school. It gave me an opportunity to learn something new, and it became a passion of mine to act. If someone would have told me that I would have been acting, I thought that they were crazy because I never saw myself, but now look at me and I'm an actress. As Edison is an example of innovation schools that need to have more respect, and I feel like there should be more of these types of schools. They give great opportunities to students to learn something different and to even find something new about them, like an interest. I know that from experience, and I know that for a fact, so thanks to Edison, I found a new me, and I'm extremely happy about that. Edison was a fresh start for me and for me to find myself again. It was also a great way to feel comfortable once more. These schools are great, give different opportunities to your kids and give them a chance to know more about the opportunities in life and the opportunities the schools have to offer. It's an exciting adventure and it's all worth it. Edison and other schools like them should get recognized more because they give an amazing learning environment and give great education. They will try their hardest to make sure that everyone succeeds and gets a great education. Thank you.
Good evening, Superintendent Johnson and Board. I am Sheena Roach, and I am a teacher at Edison School of the Arts 47. I am speaking with you today to share with the Board all the reasons why I love being a teacher at IPS Innovation Schools. With the autonomy that comes with innovation, my school leaders get to look at various curriculums and determine what will be best fitting to the needs of our students. School leaders can purchase these curriculums that they feel best fit the gaps and successes of students. As a building, writing scores have been a gap, and the middle school ELA curriculum this year has great supports for that. Because of the flexibility of innovation, we get to make these decisions. Professional development is very near and dear to me. I am a lifelong learner, just as I hope to cultivate my students to be. My school leaders get to make the building's unique calendar and schedule, which allows Edison staff to have professional development weekly on the early release day. This allows for consistent and ongoing professional development. Part of my professional development has been the amazing experience of arts integration. The students at Edison get to experience core content through the arts. I have the privilege to watch children learn vocabulary through tableaus, math through movement, and science through dance. Edison gets the opportunity to delegate professional development resources to teaching arts, working with our staff to integrate the arts. It has been a phenomenal experience watching my students' knowledge and understanding deepen through this enriching program. Not only do my students get the opportunity to have arts integration into their core curriculum, they get the opportunity to work with 10 different arts teachers in various studies, such as dance, instrumental music, vocal music, piano, theater, and arts classes. Because of the various art educators in the building, our students have the opportunity to participate in classes such as animation, drumtastic, color guard, flamenco dance, theater set construction and design, acting for films, and script writing. These opportunities provide the students can be life-changing. Finding a passion in the arts can help students want to be at school. It can make the school experience so very joyous for these students, and the value of this is priceless. All of these opportunities are possible because of the autonomy of innovation. Thank you.
Good evening. Most of you know me. My name is Angela Cordova, and I'm a parent of Stephen Foster's 67 family. What I bring to you tonight is my family. My daughter will speak next, and she will tell you her opinion on all of this. My opinion is that you guys had an opportunity to implement everything that the PATH School has to offer within IPS. I love our IPS teachers, down to our cafeteria workers, janitors, who have been the same for many years since we started. If the charter school takes over, it's not at fault of the children. It's not at fault of the parents. It's at fault of the system. The system doesn't work. You've seen and heard from many people within different charter schools that it works. So why not bring it to IPS? Why not put it in there so that children can function and can learn, but be able to stay with their current family? And I believe that's the choice you should make tonight. Thank you.
My name is Isabella, and I'm 7 years old. I like to learn, subtract, and adding. I love my mom very much, but my mom is sad because she works too hard. My mom wants to help the school, but I want to change. I want to learn times. I want to make new teachers, friends. If you change the school, I will miss my teachers, but I will still have my friends.
Our next group is Christina Smith, Arius Stewart, Giselle Salinas, Flor Schutz, and Julie Mahia Shutt. At present.
Over the past several years, IPS administrators have told this board that they have done all that they can to help struggling schools in the district. They have claimed that Innovation Restart is the most drastic and last resort that they have in their arsenal to help improve educational outcomes of the schools in the district. This is a lie. Not a half-truth, not an interpretation, it's a lie. IPS has failed to meet even the most basic requirements providing an education for the most vulnerable students and struggling schools. Staffing classrooms with permanent qualified teachers. School 48 reported in their last community meeting, which IPS administrators were present at, that they were short teachers, yet no help was provided and only innovation has been offered. The district is short over 125 teachers, ESL teachers, instructional coaches, interventionists, special education, all at non-innovation schools, almost all at neighborhood schools. Is that meeting even a basic need? Absolutely not. So IPS is definitely not doing everything that they can do. These openings, however, don't show the impact to schools or students. IPS wants to continuously talk about instructional time, how much instructional time is lost because children lack qualified teachers. At 67 last year, a fourth grade class was without a teacher for half the year, and after a teacher quit in 2 weeks. Middle school had no math teachers for half the year. Math teachers, none. No social emotional learning teacher for more than half the year, which caused classes to be split up and overcrowded. Second grade spent months without a teacher, and 67 was missing an ESL teacher for months. This year, there's no art teacher, no fourth grade teacher, no sixth grade teacher, and now only one permanent teacher in sixth grade. So how's the district doing everything that it can? These aren't isolated incidents at all. Studies have shown that struggling schools need stability and that each time a principal is changed, the test scores go down and are lower with frequent changes. 48 and 67 have now found stability with their current principals and shown growth and improved test scores. Isn't that what the district wants?
Thank you, your time
and
is
the whole
expired.
purpose of innovation? When a district has an entire department which costs over $400,000 a year in
Ms.
salaries
Smith,
alone,
we've held everyone to 2 minutes
whose
this evening.
sole
I would
purpose
appreciate
is to
you
create
wrapping your
more
comments,
innovation
please.
schools, that's exactly what they're going to do. IPS can no
Good evening, Superintendent Johnson and the IPS Board of Commissioners. My name is Juliana Mia Shu, and I am a 7th grader in Stephen Foster School 67.
My name is Aurelia Elizabeth Cesati Carlos, and I am in the 6th grade at 67. We are here tonight because we know that there are changes about to happen at our school, and we want to share our experiences in the school and share what we hope to see for the future.
I started at 67 in the 3rd grade. The first year, I was super scared. I was sick to my stomach. I had no friends and sat by myself at lunch. In the 4th grade, I had made new friends, but again, in 5th grade, I was back to the bad feelings. 6th grade, the one teacher I liked the most had moved away, and we had to switch teachers often. As a student, it seemed like teachers were quitting on us, and leaving, but not anymore. I love my teachers. Now they are very helpful.
I started at 67 in kindergarten. In kindergarten and first grade, I got good grades. A teacher would help me because I did not know any English. When I first got to school, by third grade, it felt like things were going downhill. But classes were crowded, but I understand now and love 67.
We have concerns, but about the school, we also have questions. Why did you choose our school? We feel like the rug is being pulled out from under us, and no one knew until it was so late. We only found out because a paper that showed us the change that was coming. We want Stephen Foster to stay.
We believe that the change is important and necessary, but we wish we had known sooner that our school was going to change. We are both nervous about meeting new teachers and expecting just to trust them.
We have both met the future leader of the school, and we think she's good, but her dreams are big and so are her expectations. I hope it does not fail because it will hurt all of the kids in our school. I hope the good teachers and social workers can stay.
Thank you for listening to our concerns.
Good evening, Superintendent Johnson and IPS Board of Commissioners. My name is Giselle Salinas, and I am a current junior at Crispus Attucks High School. I attended Stephen Foster at 67, and now my little sister is in first grade at 67. I loved my time at 67. I had such a great experience. My teacher always taught us new things. Every teacher always wanted to teach kids how to read, write, and do math. I'm sad to hear how much it has changed for my sister. She should have had the same experience as me. All I hear about now is that the teachers are not as patient and not as motivated to teach the kids. In kindergarten, my sister did not have a teacher for the second half of the school year, and my family felt like she was going to be behind. As a family, we have had to support her. We have taught her how to sound out letters and words so that she would not be behind in first grade. I feel like I'm a teacher to her. I want to see my sister accomplishing all that she wants her to achieve. Any aspiration that she wants to achieve, I will support her as long as she also supports herself. The school should also have a role in helping her reach goals. We should all be working towards the aspiration of the kids. I recently met the new leader for 67. I am excited for my sister. She is amazing, and the school will be so much better with her. I support the new leader and program. Thank you so much for taking the time to hear me. I hope you will vote to restart this school so all the kids have a chance to reach their goals.
I'm speaking on behalf of Flora Shute. Good evening, Superintendent Johnson and members of the IPS Board of Commissioners. My name is Flora Shute, and I have 4 children. 4 of them attend 67, and I love 67 and its leader. I'm going to miss her dearly and the staff too if the school goes into a charter school. The teachers communicate well about how the kids are doing in school. They understand my son's condition and my daughter's as well. I didn't even know about the change until 2 weeks after the IPS district announced the decision. You should have given us a heads up last year that our school was one of the failing schools. At least that was my understanding from the PAF team when they spoke to us at that meeting. This is not fair. This will impact a lot of parents and students, and that is why we are so upset. When something happens to one of us, it affects us all. No one told us. There are little things that have to change and have to be replaced. There are things that should be put in place to help the teachers. The school has very low funding to get any things done like having supplies and classroom resources. They need more support for students with disabilities and better staff to support those students. I am upset about the lack of communication with parents in this process. I think that there are positive changes that need to be made for 67, and yes, I think that IPS can do better if the board members listen to the parents of 67. With these changes, School 67 could do better. If the PATH school does get approved, I hear that the teachers will get more support and work as a team to help our children in the school. My son wants to be an engineer, and he should be learning engineering skills. I believe PATH will be good for him and other students. I love what the PATH team told me about their anti-bullying practices that will exist in the schools because my kids are being bullied for their disabilities and their differences, and I am excited about that. I am happy that Midtown will stay, but we need more. A lot of kids in this school have been through a lot of things, and so have I. I've been homeless, experienced abuse as a child and as an adult, and want to be sure that my kids get the support. Why IPS doesn't support
Thank you. Your time
67,
has
we
expired.
won't know.
Good evening, Superintendent Johnson and members of the IPS Board of Commissioners. My name is Anna Hernandez, and I am an IPS parent. I have 3 children who attend Global Prep 44 for the past 3 years. I am one of the parents who signed the letter that you received tonight and went on some of the school tours that were mentioned in that letter. I toured Paramount and Crystal House with a group of parents. They each had things that I liked, but when I toured Paramount, I was extremely impressed by the models that they have in place to directly support students who are below grade level. These families do not have to seek out neighborhood resources or be referred anywhere else. Paramount addresses these needs in-house as a top priority. They also have well-supported staff of counselors, social workers, and recovery rooms to address students' social and emotional needs. The behavior support plans that they have in place are incredibly detailed and thoughtful, and I believe that having those resources for parents and students is important. Great schools are not one size fits all. We need options, but we also need to focus on growing models in schools that have a proven track record of working, especially for kids that look like mine. I'm glad Global Prep is an option for families in Indianapolis, but I also feel that other struggling neighborhood schools could benefit from proven models that have a history of already working in Indianapolis, in neighborhoods primarily of Black and brown families. I am here because I believe we should be aggressive about growing the programs and models that are already working and closing the gaps that currently exist within some of IPS's top-rated schools. Thank you.
Our next group is Dakota Phillips, Marie Hill, Cherie Thompson, Lucinta Taylor, and Natalie Williams, if present. Tanika Holden Flynn, Josephine Mans, and Najina Livingston.
Good evening, Superintendent Johnson and Commissioners. I am Dr. Tanika Holden Flynn, current Mind Trust Fellow. I will be speaking about the leadership of Ms. Alicia Hervey, founder of the PATH School. Ms. Hervey and I are currently in the same fellowship. I also had the pleasure of working with her at District of Columbia Public Schools when she served as the Director of Master Educators Program. Alicia developed and supported master educators of all content and grade levels to effectively evaluate teachers across the district and provide evidence that improved their practice. Ms. Hervey's work increased rigor and raised the quality of instruction in classrooms in the District of Columbia. It is not only Alicia's expertise in curriculum and instruction that make her a dynamic school leader, it is her belief in students and the support she is willing to provide to ensure their success. The PATH School will provide the social, emotional learning support students need to reach their academic potential. Students of Indianapolis deserve the opportunity to learn and flourish under the PATH model with this exceptional school leader. Thank you.
Good Good evening, Commissioners and Superintendent Johnson. My name is Nigina Livingston, and I am the current Innovation Restart Leader at Urban Act Academy. I'm standing on behalf of Innovation Schools and on the behalf of Ms. Hervey, who I hope will be one of Indy's newest Innovation Charter School leaders. Ms. Hervey is a visionary leader who's already doing the work. She has been able to pilot aspects of the PATH School's educational model within the walls of Urban Act Academy. I've already seen an impact of her work with both our students and the teachers that she actively coaches. As an innovation leader, I have the freedoms and autonomy to partner with Ms. Hervey now and going forward. Innovation means that we are finding new ways to make positive changes for our students. I am proud to be an innovation leader and feel that those positive changes will impact our most deserving students. I support Ms. Hervey. I look forward to continue collaboration with her and her team to support increased behavior and academic changes for this community. Thank you.
Our next group is Dontonia Batts, Eddie Ronhell, Lakeisha Sanders, Deborah Pickett, and Nan Balaguer.
Hello, and I only wish that I looked as great and spoke as well as Dontonia Batts, who I am going to be reading for tonight. I will do it my best. She sends her best wishes and asked me to read this to you. And she's titled it Celebration of Innovation. I am Dontonia Batts, an education justice advocate and member of the IPS Community Coalition. On February 6th, I attended a forum about Innovation Network schools that left me confused and disappointed. While I appreciate the community conversation, the dialogue was incomplete. I have never heard any advocate, parent, or community leader state that Innovation Network schools are not public schools. The Indiana General Assembly decided to allow charter and Innovation Network schools to be defined as public, even though the public cannot vote for charter school boards, and the public cannot vote for Innovation Network school boards. And those two types of schools only have to follow 37 of the hundreds of education laws that regular public schools have to follow. So she's not arguing about whether or not they're public, is what she's saying. Additionally, she kept hearing panelists at that forum discuss adult agreements, issues of governance, or school boards, et cetera, and that Innovation Network schools have not been given enough time to work. I was extremely confused because there is an expectation that public institutions welcome public criticism, oversight, and discussion. Plus, public institutions are governed by individuals the public places to oversee the business of the entity, right? Not to mention, real public institutions do not get to pick and choose the data they are judged by. But still, this is not even the complete argument. So here's her quick conversation. 3 points. She would bet that every person wants every child to succeed and have the best future for every student. While growth is a measurement that states whether or not a student is on the right trajectory for improvement, she would also no, I will leave it at that. I will let her tell you the rest of hers. I'm sure she'll come back again. Thank you.
I'm speaking on behalf of Lakeisha Sanders. To whom it may concern, I, Lakeisha Sanders, is a very happy and a proud parent. Stephen Foster 67 is a great school. The teachers are great. The teacher and assistant principal and all the other staff are great. I can say that the teachers, principals, counselors, social workers, and everyone at this school has made this school what it is and does not need any changes. Ms. Shields and Ms. Kay are some of the best teachers my children has ever had. I know the other teachers are great as well. Please leave School 67 the way it is. Thank you, Lakeisha Sanders.
Good evening. My name is Deborah Pickett. I'm the principal of Stephen Foster. Tonight I came here prepared with something to say, but it's detoured a bit because as I look out in the crowd, I see many people, many that are passionate about children, the educating of children. And we all, at the core of this, want what's best for children. That's not the debate. The debate is what's best for the children at Stephen Foster School 67. Our students deserve nothing less than a program that is viable, sustainable, effective, and proven. Not promises, not projections, but evidence. Last Tuesday, this week Tuesday, you were given a sheet of the bottom 10 schools in IPS. Unfortunately, my building was one of those. But fortunately, in the 3 categories that were on there, Stephen Foster School 67 per iLearn, the most rigorous state assessment we have had in recent years. My babies outperformed 9 of those schools in ELA. We also came in 4th in I-Read only 2 neighborhood schools, not Innovation Restart. Now, math, we got some work to do. I will give you that. However, per the RDA matrix that I spoke about last week, our students with disabilities outperformed the district for 2 years straight. 2. IEP means I expect progress, and that's what we're getting for our babies at School 67. Do not dismantle nor disrupt what we have in place because we will step back.
Good evening, Superintendent Johnson and board members. Again, my name is Eddie Rangel. I'm the Executive Director of Adelante Schools, and I'm here this evening to address some questions and concerns some of the commissioners had at Tuesday evening's board meeting. So first, an update on our community engagement from Adelante to Emadan community. In the 43 days since the January 15th announcement, we met with more than 100 Southside community stakeholders to ask what they want in a school. You may have read yesterday's WFYI story about why it has been a challenge for us to connect with families due to a difficult handoff process with CSUSA. However, we continue to work with IPS to do as much outreach as possible so that students, parents, and teachers get to know us and give us feedback on future plans for their school. First and foremost, the Emadan school community needs answers tonight. Since the November IPS board meeting when the K-6 innovation agreement wasn't renewed, they've been left in limbo to wonder what will happen to their school community. Since 2015, families have chosen to enroll students at the K-6 Innovation School. Adelante Schools remains committed to ensuring families get to keep an innovation option and strengthen an already great school community. To address our model and our track record, at its essence, our model is focused on 2 pillars: high-quality curriculum and highly effective teachers. But we all know that high-quality curriculum is only as good as the teachers teaching it, and we believe the same as a model. The model is only as good as those who are leading it. The school I most recently led was 89% Black, 3% Hispanic, and 8% multiracial. We had 85% of our students receiving free and reduced lunch, 11% of our students receiving special education, and 5% of students being English learners. Our students and teachers achieved pass rates of 46.8% in ELA and 57% on math on last year's rigorous iLearn assessment. That's in addition to a 100% I-Read 3 pass rate. Those outcomes put our school well within the top 10%. I'm asking you to keep the families of Emadan in mind and make it an innovation
Thank
school
you. Your time has
where we have
expired.
leaders leading it. Thank you.
Our next group is Beth Sheely, Denise Rivera, Kendra Proctor, Darian Jones, and Bernita McGraw, if present.
Good evening, Superintendent Johnson and Board of Commissioners. My name's Beth Shealy, and I'm a second grade teacher at Stephen Foster, School 67. You've got a copy of my speech. I'm going to cut some of it out just to make it in my 2 minutes. I want to talk to you about our dyslexia screening we had at 67. We all know it's mandated by the state, and IPS uses the universal screener, which included a rapid naming automaticity test as well as encoding test. These two assessments were to ensure that students identified were not just delayed in their reading, but rather exhibited characteristics of an at-risk or some risk for dyslexia students. The results were kind of shocking, but not surprising, given the fact that we don't control who enrolls in our school at the beginning of the year, and we cannot send students to other schools because their learning style is not consistent with an innovation school's environment. The results of these tests, and I'll skip, we had 71 students at our school qualify as either at risk or at some risk of being dyslexia. Given the requirements of the interventions being like 7 students per group, we had to assemble additional teachers and assistants to deliver the interventions to a total of 5 groups at the same time. We have limited staff, and so it was a challenge to make this happen, but we made it work. We had to purchase our own intervention kits using our own school funds. We didn't get any donations to buy those. When our school's dyslexia designee attended the initial training for the approved intervention program, designees from other schools were surprised that we had so many students that qualified, 29 in second grade. Other schools, the most they had were 10. Most of them had less than that. So we've been very creative in making those. I just want to say, the state of Indiana believes that Stephen Foster Elementary School can make the state-approved goals for the current and next school year. We hope that the IPS board believes in Stephen Foster with its current staff, just as the Indiana Department of Education does. Thank you.
I will be speaking on behalf of Denise Rivera. Hello, my name is Denise Rivera, and I am the Family and Community Engagement Liaison, or the FACE, of Stephen Foster. I work with the families and community at Stephen Foster 67. Our community consists of students, staff, single mothers, grandparents, couples, and more. In my position, I work with a lot of families in need, and I work hard to help meet those needs. We have a food pantry that the parents help run. I make home visits and engage parents in school events. Our families volunteer at events, attend workshops, and help fundraise for our school. Our families are invested in our school. They come every day to help in whatever way they can. They feel comfortable here, and we have earned their trust. They support and love Stephen Foster and don't want to lose what a great staff and leadership we have now. We are family. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kendra Proctor. 3 of my 6 kids attended School 48 from 2015 to 2018. However, I was extremely concerned about their continuation this year. I pulled them from School 48 and enrolled them with KIP Indy, hoping to better their chances of academic success with an innovation school. Plus, I wanted to start my kindergartner off in the right school setting instead of taking yet another chance with School 48. Initially, I was very reluctant about pulling my young ones from 48, with that being their neighborhood school and them being used to that. I didn't want to interrupt their routine and cause instability, but as a parent, I knew it would have been likely worse to keep them enrolled at School 48. They were just not getting taught in a way that they could truly understand the material. Nevertheless, KIP Indy is helping get my child caught up and keeping her on the right track. There is no way School 48 could have delivered these results, and I owe a great deal of thanks to the growth of IPS's Innovation Network. I recently toured Phelan Leadership Academy, and I could tell that the school is full of lively energy. The attendance rates are high. I love that Phelan's goal is to keep kids in the classroom and to mediate negative behavior before suspension occurs. Also, having the kids' scores and reading levels displayed for the public is an excellent concept at Phelan. It is obvious that School 48 isn't transparent and where its kids' tests, or else many parents wouldn't be so shocked to find out that the school has been failing for 6 years. The parents at School 48 trying to figure out whether to support innovation. Okay, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Darian Jones. I'm behavior facilitator at Stephen Foster 67, and also a homeowner in the area. And I mean, none of us was notified about any of these changes that's going on. I mean, we pay our taxes there, and it's like we're paying our taxes, and y'all making changes to the neighborhood, and none of us were notified about these changes. Only way I know, because I actually work at the school. I've been there 4 years, and this is actually the most competent staff and administration that's been there thus far. And the changes that have been made is good. I mean, I see the teachers working day in and out, assisting our kids grow, and that's not just academically, but holistically as a person, socially, emotionally, and to uproot the staff and administration, it'd be a travesty. And that's not just to the school, but to the community as a whole. And the reason that it's working so good is the people that's there at Stephen Forrester, we want to be there, and we enjoy being pillars of the community in that neighborhood, and we take pride in being a part of a rich culture. But can we say the same about the people that the prospective changes that might occur? We say the same about where they had the same ambition and the same rigor as we have with assisting our kids grow, not just academically, but socially and emotionally. And I mean, we all understand, charter schools, that's big business, a lot of money, and I mean, IPS would make money just like the charter schools would. So it's like the kids being sold out to pretty much the highest bidder to see the direction of, the way that they want to take it. But I see no reason to uproot this staff, though. Doing an awesome job there. And if you look at the statistics, the scores are coming up and everything of that nature. So consider that. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Bernita McGraw, and I will be talking to you briefly about innovation schools. I am a teacher, and I was a teacher for IPS, and then I was a teacher for an innovation school, and now I'm a teacher at an innovation charter school. Not just a teacher, I am also a leader. And in my time there, I have made tremendous amount of change in our middle school. I have met many students that at the beginning of the year, I can honestly say, did not know what school was. They thought that every day probably should have been a movie day, but it wasn't. I came into the classroom and I told them, I say, you know what? It's sweat plus sacrifice will equal success. And every day I held them to a high standard. Because we were innovation, I was able to make changes in that classroom. And next year, I can proudly say that the 7th graders that I have will be offered Algebra 1 next year. These are students that were 4 to 3 years behind. They couldn't do basic math skills, and now they're doing 2-step equations. They're solving for X. They know what is expected of them every single day. And I'm saying this because I know I have seen all the sides and I don't see the resources. I need more. We need more. These students need more. I can say that it was negligent on the part that we have not given them all that they need. And to know that the funds are out there and that if they were offered to these students, the places they will go and the things that they will see. I know that I have seen my students grow above and beyond this year. We had over 50% of our middle schoolers on track to reach their growth goal by the end of the year. I have students who are above average, and I have students who are below. But I have now seen more students in my care that are below average than I have seen in any of the schools that I've worked at. But it will change.
Our next group is Ashley Thomas, Joshua Swim, Aaron Brown, Ed Mahern, and Laura Giffel, if present.
All right, good evening, Superintendent Johnson and members of the board. My name is Ashley Thomas. I'm a parent of 3 beautiful babies that attend IPS school, PLA 93, and I'm very proud. Before I stood up at this podium nearly 6 years ago and advocated for Project Restore, which has successfully turned around 2 schools in my community to be replicated in my child's school, right? I was approached by Channel 6 reporter Rafael Sanchez. He asked me and other parents, why not just pull your kids from this school if it's failing? I said to him, well, what about the other 350 kids in that building? Who's going to continue to fight for them? And I stayed and I stuck it out, and now I have 3 babies that attend this school. My family is a part of this community. It has never just been about my babies. This is a community, a village, and what happens to those babies in that school will affect all of our community, our city, and they are so valuable and worth everyone's extra efforts and advocacy. That's why I'm speaking tonight, to call on all of us to be unified to support our IPS schools and children. We need to call out and denounce attempts to divide us. We need to question leaders and organizations that try to make education in our district a us versus them debate. I was so disappointed to hear testimony opposing referendum money going to all IPS schools, which includes innovation schools. Why aren't my kids worth the continued investment like every other IPS student? I fought hard for the IPS referenda, and so did Stan, because it was so critically important for our babies and their teachers. But I will push back when that advocacy involves treating teachers in innovation schools and my children as something other than who they are, part of the IPS family. Thank you.
Hello, Superintendent Johnson and School Board of Commissioners. Again, it's nice to see you. And this is Joshua, I'm ESL teacher at School 67. First, I would like to recognize and thank all of our students, parents, community members, and family that are here to support our current School 67 family. Just as a review, from 1st to 8th grade, and kindergarten included, 50% of our students are ESL. That means they are limited English proficient, but have great promise, and they are learning English. We have 28% of those is level 1 entering, 20% emerging, level 2, developing 35%, expanding 17%, and exited 8%, some of which are in the audience, which is awesome. We have a countrywide shortage of ELL teachers. What we need from IPS is more support, not a total change. We need support and leverage from our already amazing ESL department to help train and recruit and retain teachers that we have at our school. We need them to be trained and supported in supporting all of our students, including the English language learners. So I would like you to appeal to your logic and heart. What would you do for your children? Entrust them to an entirely new leadership, untested school model, new teachers, and a new staff. Have district train, focus on retention of our teachers who are already capable, Model after the successful schools that are in our district. Make sure that we are using the resources we have to support our school and our community now, rather than turning over. Why not create more jobs for ESL, hire another teacher, of which we have a shortage at this moment, and try to make a priority to seek to fill job holes, hiring, new plans and strategies for our current family, and supporting schools that share the IPS name. It's my IPS, our IPS, right? Thank you.
Thanks so much to the commissioners and superintendent for the opportunity to speak. My name is Erin Brown. I am the co-chair of the Education Committee of the Garfield Park Neighbors Association. I've been a Garfield Park resident for 15 years now and have been involved in the Education Committee for over 2. It's been a pleasure to get to know more about the school communities in our southeast side. After a rocky and untransparent relationship with Charter Schools USA, we've honestly been nervous about another partner coming in and having similar issues. When IPS was in the process of trying to decide how to proceed with Emma Donnan, I'm not going to say that we weren't initially disappointed. Many really hoped for a choice option on the south side of Indianapolis, which doesn't exist outside of an innovation school on the south side or even a traditional middle school, as there is space for that. Adelante reached out to us and many more community partners based on what I've heard and asked to meet with us. Rooney and Eddie, the leaders at Adelante, are clearly passionate educators. They talked with us about their educational vision, what they see for the school, and how important the community fits into that equation. They wanted to know who we thought was important to connect with in the community. They answered all of our questions, and I left that meeting significantly less concerned. Then I started seeing them at Garfield Park neighborhood meetings. They have made it clear that they want a neighborhood school for our neighborhood. Following our meeting, we were asked to even complete a survey about our community educational needs and successes, and I'm already getting newsletters from them. These guys want to be here in this community, and we so appreciate the outreach so early on in the process. My concern about transparency is not an issue with them. They have been honest with us and clear in their intention. This process has to happen quickly once IPS ended their partnership with CSUSA, but the students and families at that school, and honestly the staff who are interested in staying as well, deserve to know sooner than later what will be happening there next year and who they need to apply to. So we hope the decision will be made soon. The Garfield Park Education Committee is comfortable in having Adelante as that new partner. And actually, Laura Giffel just had to leave, so I'm gonna read her statement as well, if that's okay. Hello, my name is Laura Giffel, and I am the current president of the Bates Hendricks Neighborhood Association. I have spoken before regarding takeover transition process at Emma Donna and Manuel at TC Howe. Tonight, I wanted to share a prepared statement from the Bates Hendricks Executive Board regarding the community engagement from Adelante schools in the Bates Hendricks community. Matthew and Eddie have been attending meetings and communicating with our board since the State Board of Education meetings. They've attended our monthly meetings and smaller focus meetings on collaboration in the Southeast neighborhoods. I've met and communicated with Matthew and Eddie multiple times, and they are always wonderful and considerate of our needs. Last month, our board voted not to send a letter of support, not because we don't support their efforts, but we feel it's important to show support for our neighborhood boundary schools. And we believe that the input of the surrounding neighborhood should be more important than distant ones. We do not want our lack of letter of support to suggest a lack of trust in their efforts, rather a respect for hyper-local control of schools. Additionally, we hope that all 3 schools involved in this transition get an answer on the next step soon. It's our understanding that the staff at Manual are stuck in the middle between wanting to support the current students and the refusal of Charter Schools USA administration to release records so families can appropriately plan for the next school year. We believe this to be true at Emma Donnan as well, and we think that it is unfair for everyone involved. The Bates Hendricks community is thankful that IPS showed a renewed commitment to the southeast side with their involvement with Manual High School, and we hope that families will continue to receive the quality public education they deserve. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ed Mayhern. First of all, I want to say that the commissioners have a job that I never wanted. It is the hardest elected official job in the state of Indiana, you don't get a lot of good things said about you. You spend a lot of hours trying to do the right thing, and you can never please everybody. I appreciate what the board has done. For the last year and a half, I've been involved with Charter Schools USA. From the first meeting with them all the way up until the last meeting of the State Board of Education. Thanks to the help of some people at IPS. Thanks, a lot of thanks goes to Charter Schools USA. They had as much to do with losing as we did as winning. I want to address Emma Donnan and Alante. I don't want to argue, I don't want to discuss, I don't want to think about innovative opposed to regular schools. We're not in a position to do that in that Eladante, IPS, cannot even get the names of the students or the faculty at those schools. There are teachers that are being punished because their information has not been turned over. There have been students whose future we don't know because we can't communicate with them. Aladante has gone out of their way. I see them 3 or 4 times a week at different functions around Garfield Park, and I appreciate that, and I would recommend that they are different than the underbenefited programs.
Thank you, your time has expired.
Thank you.
Our next group is Damia Davis, Mary Ann Ruger, Amy Sun, Jen Watts, and Yolanda Middlebrooks, if present.
Good evening. This is a message from one of our students at School 67. He estado en 2 escuelas desde que yo llegué aquí en este país y ninguna de ellas no puede compararse como la escuela 67. La comunidad es fuerte y amorosa. He says, I've been in this country for less than a year and I've been to 2 schools, and none of these schools can compare to School 67. The community is so solid, and it's a loving place to be. School 67, as the student says, it's a phenomenal place. We have good staff, good leadership. We just need support and help from the board. It's just that we've been facing with some issues since we have Phoenix, and again, middle school. So we weren't prepared for any of these. And we don't really have any model, anything for discipline issue, for instance. So we're pretty much floating in the air. So when students do things, we pretty much don't know. In certain cases, if we had, for instance, like a discipline, a plan, something we could follow, and things could have been better. And our principal, Ms. Pickett, has done such an amazing job since she's been in our building. And we've been having several teachers come in and leaving, but I think it's you guys, to help us to keep this school going. We need support from you. So we're not asking you to pretty much hold our hands, but we just need your support. Thank you.
Good Good evening, Commissioners and Superintendent Johnson, and thank you for your time. My name is Jen Watts, and I'm the Executive Director of Every Girl Can STEM, and I have had the honor to work with Alicia Hervey for the past year as a fellow at the Mind Trust. To give a bit of my background, I worked in the White House as a National Security Director for the Office of Presidential Personnel for President Barack Obama. I oversaw the hiring of 1,600 national security appointees across our national security agencies and had the privilege to work with some of our most talented men and women in service overseas. I was trained that the most important skill you look for in a candidate for a leadership position is integrity. And I can say with utmost confidence and experience that Alicia Hervey exudes integrity in her character. She is intentional about receiving feedback and constantly working to grow. She will ensure that each and every student receives individualized academic plans grounded in their social and emotional needs. She is one of our top educational leaders in the city of Indianapolis and quite possibly in the nation. I will go to bat for her and for whatever she needs, and I will put my reputation against her reputation, that IPS should be honored to have someone like Alicia Hervey, and the families and students in IPS should be honored to have her as a leader. Thank you so much.
I'm Mary Ann Schlegel-Ruger, and I'm a resident of IPS. I'm a parent. I'm a parent of, as many of you know, 2 children, one in college successfully and one who has some slight special needs. So I do understand what a lot of the parents are saying tonight when they say they have problems, because it's difficult when you have a child with special needs. And you need not only the support at the school level, it's imperative that special needs parents have support at the district level, because that's where they have to turn if something doesn't go right at the school. And they need to know the path to do that, and they need to be educated in how to do that. I don't question anything any parent has said tonight. These are their experiences and they're powerful. But I would suggest to you strongly, boldly I would say, these are not school-level decisions. These are district issues. If we have this many schools having this many teachers missing, or this many special education problems, or the list goes on of what you've heard tonight, we have a crisis at the district level. And so we need to solve it at the district level. That doesn't mean that we close a school, which to some degree is what we would be doing tonight if you vote for this. It means we fix it. And then the question becomes, how do we fix it? Your proposal is to fix it by taking away everyone they know and bringing in a plan. And a plan with some leaders who come with great recommendations. My question to you would be, why didn't you hire those leaders as principals? Because they were available. They've been in this city for several years. They've been working here. You probably know them. Why didn't we get them? And they could run many of our schools. Was there a decision that they weren't suitable? If they weren't, they shouldn't be doing this. If they were, we should have had them. So I would encourage you to not vote for this, but provide these schools the resources they need.
Thank you. Your time has expired.
Thank you very much.
Our next group is Laketria Taylor, Marcy Riggs, Larisha Island, Sharice McGill, and Shan Hart, if present.
Good evening, Superintendent Johnson and members of the board. Thank you for taking time to listen to me tonight. My name is Sharice McGill. I am a staff member at Urban Act Academy, but more importantly, I am a parent of an IPS student at Seidner Academy. I'm here tonight to speak in support of Urban Act Academy and in favor of innovation schools. Why was Restart an option for IPS 14, which my son went there also? It was because it was failing. It was because the district decided that something needed to be done because IPS kids deserved it. I'm proud to be here with other parents of Urban Act tonight and proud of the ones that spoke earlier this week. Why do we think we all took the time to come here this week? It's because we are all proud of our school. It's because we believe innovation made a difference for us and that you needed to hear that. Urban Act isn't an ordinary school. Students there have place-based learning opportunities and teachers that really care about them, and I think you heard from one tonight. I'm also proud that a lot of the people who work in the building actually look like the children that attend there. There are more minority teachers at that school than it was right before the change. And the school leader is also an African American woman. Innovation means to be creative. It also means to think outside the box. That is what you have done for Urban Act Academy, and I hope it is what more kids in IPS get to experience. I also like to invite you to come out and check out what we're doing. Thank you for listening and have a good evening.
The end off of my ham. Why did you cut the end off the ham before you put it in the oven?
Well, back then, I didn't have a pan big enough to put it in.
Good evening, Superintendent Johnson and other board members. Innovation is very important in today's world. Many things that used to be are no more. The flexibilities and freedoms allowed by Edison being innovated allow more opportunities for mostly underprivileged and underperforming students to embark and experience things that ordinary public schools, due to old standards and worn policies, would not be able to. A prime example in my family's case is my 14-year-old African-American son, whom by society's view, unfortunately, should hate school, get a C average, and be okay with a D as long as he passes. Instead, he looks forward to attending school each day because he comes to school, he goes to a school that allows extraordinary electives such as fitness, where he's learned yoga, Pilates, and kickboxing, or acting for film, where my daughter is learning about different lenses and how to create monologue. Innovation provides a better connection for our developing society and creates a sense of motivation for our school staff, like Penny Guthrie, who encourages our teachers to create methods and explore different ways to feed our hungry scholars. The knowledge that will ultimately follow them to adulthood, where they're the doctors, lawyers, police, and political officials of our future. Innovation is critical in increasing the probability of a better and more ham future. Thank you.
Our final group this evening is Monique Burns, Raymond Batts, and Nan Ballagher, if present.
Hello, my name is Christina Brown. I'm back. Okay, if you do your research on School 67 from before Ms. Pickett took over to now, you can see the big turnover, not just the scores, because we are more than scores, but paperwork overall, meaning the chaos that was going on in the building. All this was going on before she took over and when she arrived. I am a very active parent. I have spent a lot of time inside the school over the past 7 years. You can also do your research on us. We're the Browns, Christina Brown. I got 4 children. I'm very active. So I don't need no behind scenes of any facts of anything. I have watched it turn from all chaos to now in a calm environment. I have children that have disabilities that were getting bullied on a regular basis before Miss Pickett arrived. I used to be nervous to drop my children off and not trust that they were going to handle it and have it under control. Now, these past 2 years, I don't even think about it anymore because I know that the staff from Miss Pickett all the way down to the janitors got my babies covered. Moral of the story is, they have changed my children's life. My children were 2 years behind before Miss Pickett arrived. She has changed. I mean, they're like on grade level. They have progressed. They are interacting. They used to hide underneath tables. They do not do that anymore. My kids have different disabilities. I'm not going to say it because it don't need to be public, but there's no need to change. We need more support, more hands-on. I've seen it change. I know it can change. If my kids can do it, they have changed my children. My children were a big struggle when they first started. Keep the school. Give them more support. Don't change it, because if you can do this and bring somebody else in, why can't we have the same resources that you're trying to replace us? Why not put that in place?
Thank you. Your time has expired.
And through some miracle, I am also Ramon Batts tonight, which is even more astounding, who sends his best wishes and had planned to speak on Public Schools Week, but was pulled, I think, out of town. I'll speak in his voice, try to speak in his voice. I am Dr. Ramon L. Batts, a parent of public school graduates, an educator, an alumnus of IPS, and a community leader. I'm a proud supporter of public schools. Hence, I would like to highlight the celebration of Public Schools Week that began on February 24th and ends tomorrow, February 28th. And I should note, I see today that IPS is celebrating it. I'm sure he would say that if he were here. And thank you very much. And I'm sure we'll hear lots about it the rest of the week. He also notes, let's celebrate by ensuring that public voice remains a part of our society within the institution designed to produce critically thinking citizens that will preserve all that is good in our democracy. Public voice means public vote and public. And in saying that, one more point that he asked me to ask about. In the call-in show on Innovation Schools last week, a study was brought up, and it was speaking about extra days of learning and how many extra days of learning mayors, charter schools that were innovation schools, if we're understanding it correctly, had versus regular schools. And 2 questions on that. One is, and I'm going to interject here if I can, as I hear about all the teacher vacancies, aren't those lost days of learning? If a student doesn't have a teacher for 2 months, haven't they lost 40 days of learning? And how could they compete on a study like this? The second one is, the study measured students who were continually in grades K through 5 in the same school. However, Seidner only starts in 2nd grade. Is it possible that the study completely left out all of our gifted children at Seidner because they changed schools in 2nd grade? I want you to think about that.
President O'Connor, that concludes public comment for this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Harris, and thank you to our speakers for adhering, for the most part, to our compressed schedule. We will, having received comments from the board and the public, will now proceed to the consent agenda. The items on the consent agenda were reviewed at our agenda review session on Tuesday and reflect all necessary modifications. Are there any questions or requests to remove an item from the consent agenda? Commissioner Slack.
I'm sorry I didn't ask this earlier, but on the consent agenda, I do see resignations from School 43. I see 2. Have we had any other HR replacements or any substitutes or anything for those 2 that have left? 43, I see kindergarten teacher and a math teacher.
I can find out for you. I don't know offhand,
All right,
but I'll check.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, I'll note that the English Language Arts textbook adoption presented in the new business and discussed on Tuesday is included in the general purchasing report and will be approved as part of the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Moving to board appointments, we have one item in board appointments this evening. Item 5.01 includes additional appointments to the Finance Committee. We did make initial appointments in January, but indicated at the time there were available seats on the Finance Committee. Our Chief Financial Officer has since identified and recommended 2 additional appointees that are interested and qualified to serve. Do I have a motion to approve the appointments as presented?
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Any comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. I'll now turn the agenda over to Superintendent Johnson for the superintendent reports.
Thank you, President O'Connor. There are 3 superintendent reports to be presented this month. Item 6.01 was our school spotlight. If you remember, Mr. Larkin was not feeling well. He's still not feeling well, so we hope he's feeling better soon, but we will go ahead and do that next month. So we'll pick back up with Harshman Middle School next month for the school spotlight. The second item, item 6.02, is a presentation on our school year 2021 budget appropriation development process. Weston began the work around that process with commissioners during our work session earlier this month, and we will continue to move that process forward. So I'd like to invite Weston Young to the podium at this time to share more.
Thank you, Superintendent Johnson, and good evening, Commissioners. We're going to review some of the slides that we've reviewed at the work session and also dive a little deeper into some of the projected landscape of the district, and then arrive at the recommendations for our advertised appropriations and requested levies. Just the key messages coming away from these work session and action presentations are that budget appropriations are the authorization to spend up to a maximum amount. And so at the very end, when we have the recommendations, those appropriations, that is the max amount that we're requesting to spend for school year 2021-21. Projected cash flows are also aligned to strategic priorities and supported by the operating and capital referendum dollars, and that the district strives to develop a sustainable long-term financial plan to support academic priorities, and that key decisions have come before the board and also will continue to come before the board in the coming months that will impact the long-term cash flow planning. Again, reminder of the budget appropriation, that's an estimate of the maximum expenditures of a school year, requires the authorization from the board to spend that amount for a fiscal year, and is a DLGF statutory requirement that we will submit to the DLGF. It's not a line item budget, although there are reports and available in our work session documents to show how those dollars were, those appropriations were developed. It also is not a breakdown of the expenditures at this time of specific salaries and benefits, as our schools and our central office is still allocating those resources for next school year. And it's no guarantee of district revenue. So we may request a tax levy, but there's no guarantee that we will receive that amount. Reminding you of the timeline on where we are, so action session, and then tomorrow we'll be advertising in the Indy Star and Court and Commercial our appropriations and requested levies. We'll be reviewing in our public hearing on the 9th, March 9th, here in this boardroom at 5 o'clock, our public hearing, and then also looking to March 19th, our action session in March, to approve that budget before the April 1st deadline. The next few slides are repeat and review of our financial landscape that's 6 months in, July through December 2019. What you'll see here is that the 19-20 year-to-date expenditures are in line with our budgeted amount, $203 million over the course of the 6 months. We've also highlighted by fund the 6 months year-to-date. The key item that we've noted here is that in 2019, the first 6 months, you noted that the deficit for that 6-month period was just under $16 million in the net cash flow from those funds. What you see is that now that we have been receiving operating referendum funds, that deficit has been closed and is now, because of some sales of property during those first 6 months, we're actually ahead of schedule with an $8.8 million surplus for those 6 months. So takeaway here is the support of the operating referendum proceeds to our cash flow and bottom line. Next slide highlights the cash balances that we've been managing over the number of years here, picking up the last few years because of some of the bond proceeds that we've received and also the operating referendum proceeds. We've reviewed a cash flow projection for the 1920 school year. This is the 12-month projection showing that at the end of 2020 school year, we would have pretty close to a break even when it comes to education, operations, revenues, and expenditures, basically a $2 million net income, net cash flow, with balances in the range of 21% of our annual expenditures, which is healthy for in the short term. Looking at the 2021 cash flows, projecting into next school year, this is in collaboration with advisors on property tax revenues, which we reviewed with the board in October and with our finance committee. Our projected revenues for next school year from property taxes is $90 million going into the operations fund. From the state tuition support, about $267 million. Our projected expenditures with the increases in teacher compensation, our total educational expenses of $244 million, with a net cash flow for the education fund of $3 million. And then the operations side, a net cash flow of a negative $5 million. Fairly healthy, still 19% in the short term, and that is the projection for 2021, which has built the appropriations that we're requesting at the end. Next slide shows how some of those dollars are broken out by different functions. So the general education expenditures, the special education expenditures, the innovation payments, and the educational support that is funded out of the education fund, which receives the state income. What you'll see also is that that fund breaks even. At the same time, $33 million is not spent in that fund because the operating referendum is able to pull in and fund that amount of dollars going to teachers in the schools. On the operations fund, you see that operations transfer coming from the education fund, which is allowed by the state statute, $110 million of inflows, $90 million from property tax, it's $20 million from the education fund, helping to support the capital projects, the improvements, the repairs, the utilities of the schools, no matter the governance model. Transportation, no matter the governance model, $40 million, and then admin operations, central office staff supporting the schools, breaking down a projected revenue of net negative $2 million, again, close to a break even for next school year. In the next slide, we want to hone in on some of the trade-offs and the conversations that we have brought to the board, but also highlight a couple that we relate to transportation and facilities. We know that going into the next school year, we know the tuition support that's been set by the state legislature. We also know that we still have some strong economic activity in the local context. That is something that we need to recognize, though, in a 10-year economic expansion. You might be reading news in the newspaper and seeing your stock portfolio, your 401k, or the markets are a little bit at risk right now. There's a shock that might be happening at our system that's going to potentially impact the demand for global goods, which Indiana, being an export manufacturing state, could potentially impact on our state revenues, which eventually has an impact on our appropriations to K-12 funding. That is something that my team, advisors, we're looking at and when we look out 4 or 5 years, that's something that we're highly cognizant of, that is happening as we speak. This week is a very important time in the markets, and that we need to be monitoring that. But with that, whatever the revenues we have, that is the limit of spend. That's the limit of cash that comes into the district, and that requires us to make some key decisions and trade-offs to support the 6 district priorities that are listed there. So we want to highlight some of the areas that we've had conversations so far. So we've invested in our collective bargaining opportunities with teachers and our support staff. Tonight, you just approved the textbook adoption. about a $5 million investment over the course of the next six years that our students will have new English language arts adopted curriculum. We've been investing on an annual basis in our technology refresh. That is something that we are doing consistently that wasn't done previously. That is a strategic investment in our schools. We've also, over the course of the last few years, had success in driving health insurance costs down. Energy management initiatives, some success there in our energy management. In transportation, we'll highlight that in the next slide. But again, the next slide is talking about what is in development, what's already come before, but also what's in development for the long haul to seek financial sustainability. So the investment we've made, on the slide, you show the average percentage increases of each of the collective bargaining agreements since 2015. That's following 5 years where teachers did not receive a raise, no increase. So the vision is to keep that going. And what we see on the next slide is that if you take those average increases from the time of 2014, what a teacher was paid then, looks 2 years from now 38% more than what they were being paid in 2014. In order to do that, there's significant trade-offs. And we're going to highlight a couple of the conversations that are happening already in the district and also will be coming before you in the coming months and weeks. So IPS has been addressing transportation costs with the success the past few school years. In 2016-17 school year, IPS spent $47 million. And in school year 2018-19, IPS spent $38 million. IPS continues to iterate on opportunities to better serve students and reduce costs for the long term. And throughout the past few years, there were two known variables to plan for related to transportation. The first was IPS continually planned for the end of the current bus provider contract as of June 30, 2020. And what you see is that we've brought the transportation RFP before the board. The board acted on that last month. And we are in the process of transitioning that to begin next school year to first student. That is something that was approved by the board, and the projected annual savings versus the current framework is $7 million. So we've acted on that, and that was a decision brought before the board already, and we're executing on that. The second is that IPS and Indigo have had opportunities to cultivate relationship needed to build a symbiotic partnership to better serve our community and be collaborative stewards of property tax and referendum funds for our respective organizations. The development of the relationship was aided by key events occurring the past few years. I want to go through the history because it's taken about 3 years to arrive at this point. In November of 2016, Marion County voters passed a referendum for a 0.25% income tax increase to fund mass transit improvements. Immediately, IPS presented transportation proposals for the 17-18 school year and also discussed opportunities to engage with Indigo in developing a task force to utilize Indigo for student transportation. For school year 2018-19, IPS piloted on a limited basis student ridership of Indigo at a few high schools. And in November 2018, IPS residents voted to pass the IPS referendum with references to planned savings utilizing Indigo for student transportation. In August of 2019, this current school year, IPS provided 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365-day passes to all high school students, beginning a 2-year pilot with Indigo. In September 2019, Indigo fulfilled their first launch of the Red Line, investments from that referendum back in 2016. And ongoing, Indigo continues to seek and improve service on existing lines and build out their grid over the next 5+ years. And as Indigo improves and grows its impact across the IPS community, IPS students will have an opportunity to be better served and give IPS the opportunity to decide to lower the number of yellow buses, thus reducing our costs. What we've shown is that we've entered into that 2-year pilot. Well, we were started even before then. We're committed. We've been committed for 3 years in the conversation. And we're working to collaborate on the data tracking, which is very, very important to this process to learn about what is going on with the students. How can we do that better collaboratively? At the same time, we're training students, we're training families who may not have ever utilized that as a sole source of service. The current cost of that, the current investment, again, no savings at this time, but the current cost is for this school year, $95,000. Next year, $337,000. So they were in a 2-year pilot, and we're hoping over the long term to see those results and reduce costs and have the opportunity to reduce the yellow bus commitment. Second item is the portfolio planning process. The takeaway points from this slide are that academic programming is going to be responsive to the needs and desires of the community, that we align the supports for teaching strategies with the resources available in 21st century learning environments, and that the key project of the facilities optimization study, just one of the key projects, is underway that includes an inspection, assessment, and evaluation of each of our buildings. The IPS facility footprint, both current and in the future, will be key drivers of aligning operational costs in a sustainable framework. This facilities optimization study and also the portfolio planning cycle were presented to the board and acted upon. Portfolio planning process presented in September 2019 with deliverables in the fall of 2020. And then the facilities optimization study approved by the board in November 2019 with deliverables expected in May of 2020. The next slide is an image to show the opportunities that we have, the scenarios that are before us with revenues and expenditures and the assumptions and the decisions that we will make. Without significant savings related to operations, specifically related to facilities and transportation, operating cash is projected to run out as represented by scenario 1. As the district is able to experience the projected revenue, control, and reduce operational costs, IPS will arrive at a sustainable funding framework as represented by scenario 3. Ultimately, a balanced cash flow is needed year over year to ensure the academic goals and operations of the district are met. Last section is arriving at the budget appropriation. So at the budget public hearing, we'll be presenting the proposed appropriation, the requested levy, and making that request. That's advertised tomorrow. And key messages that a budget appropriation is the max expenditures of a fiscal year, that our cash flows are strategically aligned with the academic goals and objectives of the district, and they're supported by the operating and capital referendums in place, and that we're striving to develop a sustainable long-term financial plan, and that key decisions that have already been made will have that impact, and also those coming before you will be very important to our long-term cash flow planning. Time will take questions.
Mr. Collins.
Thank you, Weston, for all your hard work on this. I'm looking at slide 19. And at the very bottom, on the Indigo pilot, it mentions the cost for the first year and then significantly higher for the second year. And I understand that Indigo, there are some delays in getting the crosstown, the blue line in place, and up to 2 years. So does that reduce, because we have limited or less access to Indigo for our students, then would it reduce the cost in the second and third year of the agreement, or is it a contractual thing set in stone?
The agreement is 2 years.
2 years.
And it's contractual at this point. These are the costs, much reduced from the student fees that would be paid if we paid the market rate Indigo amount.
So if we have a limited, like only students who can access their school from the north and south bus lines, then would there be any kind of a negotiation for getting some of that money back in that second year if we don't have access to the bus lines?
So I would say in this agreement, I don't believe this is something we'd be negotiating at this time. I think what we're looking at is that exact question is the build out that is not necessarily controlled by IPS, it's controlled by the Indigo team and the resources that they have in place and the time and energy of contractors to develop those routes and alignments. That's what we would be talking about probably starting summer, fall of this year in planning for not next school year, but the 21-22 school year, where we would be not in pilot mode. We would be considering, okay, that third year, what is the cost to us as a district? What are the benefits that our schools have received, the students have received, and really utilizing the tracking systems that we've tried to be putting in place together to make an informed decision for us as a district. Hopeful that there's long-term savings, but it's not one that we control 100%. This is part of when we talk about the partnership, the long-term view is that Indianapolis taxpayers have a property tax that supports Indigo. It has a property tax that supports IPS, both organizations moving people through the city. Both organizations have a referendum. Indigo has a 0.25% income tax referendum to support their operations. IPS has an operating referendum to support our operations. That's a lot of tax going to a school district and a mass transit that's moving people. And so as a city, we have to collaborate and work together to lower that together as a community. Our hope is that we can do that in the long term.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Just to refine, I think also the perspective of the 2-year agreement that we have with them with the pilot is based upon what's already built out. Looking forward would be what they have yet to build out, but that sort of the concept of the 2-year agreement we have with them was what they had in place, and so that they aren't not meeting any of those obligations based on that 2-year agreement. Commissioner Arnold.
Kind of on the same issue. I remember back when we talked about this and we looked at the 337,500, that yes, we were going to, that was an expenditure, but we were going to be saving, ultimately we were saving more than we were spending. Refresh my memory on that conversation.
During the pilot stage, this is total investment. The savings come when we actually go live and we're actually committing to Indigo for students and removing a yellow bus. That is not in place during the first 2 years.
So during the pilot, the 337,500 is over and above what we would normally pay for transportation.
Correct.
Anyway.
Correct.
But the impetus to do this is once we do this and move through, then our transportation our expenses should decrease as the dependence on using Indigo. So the pilot programs are just kind of build that base and help with that transition. And then if we decide to move that way, then our internal regular transportation expenses should decrease.
Correct. This is a short-term investment for a long-term savings.
Thank you.
And also, Commissioners, next month we'll bring an update on Indigo specifically. So get all those questions together. We'll present it next month.
Commissioner Gore, you had a question?
I wanted to look at slide 21. Just have you explain. I love your graphs always. However, the cash balance depends on the ability for IPS to execute on key decisions. Could you explain again our positive and then the negative? What decisions might go into that?
Yeah. So let's go back up to this slide, because this kind of captures some of the revenue considerations and also some of the expenditure considerations. So baked into that graph are assumptions on what we will receive in state tax revenue. Okay? So we're hopeful that we receive exactly what we assumed. But if we were to receive more, obviously the line pushes out, everything else being equal. If we receive less than what we assume, the line will move sooner. If we have property tax revenues assumed at a certain rate versus what we actually receive, that cash balance will move to the right. If we receive property taxes less, everything else being equal, the cash balance will move to the left. So those are the key drivers on the revenue side: property taxes and state tuition support. When it comes to the expenditures, majority of our expenses are in this chart right here. We pay staff and we hire staff. We try to recruit and retain staff for our schools. What we have done in the past, I'll say prior administrations, have managed their cash by, in 2010 to 2014, not giving raises. That's one way to manage cash. At the same time, if we continue to give raises, which is the plan, that will impact our cash balance in the long term. Other pieces on transportation, we talk about the contracted service with First Student. Our plan is to have savings there. We want to realize those savings. We're not there yet. We're not into 3 years of that agreement. The economics, the students, where they live, where the schools are that they're going to, those will shift and change. And a lot of that graph that we show on slide 21 is dependent upon how we shift and model out and execute on our transportation modeling. The second piece is Indigo. Is this graph a 3-year graph or a 6-year graph? It's really for conversation about we have to make decisions. We have to make trade-offs. And when we talk about Indigo, we're investing no more than $500,000 in this 2-year pilot so that 5, 6, 7, 8 years from now, we're saving millions of dollars. And that is something that, if it comes to fruition, that aids us in having a sustainable framework like that top line. If those investments from Indigo and IPS don't play out, that's where we have to look at other conversations and decisions to control our costs. The second item there is on portfolio planning. The academic programming we have, the investments we make in those, the professional development, the resources, the equipment, everything that people are wanting. That's a decision point. Do we continue? Do we lessen? Do we increase? Facilities optimization is the big piece, though. Our footprint, our buildings. There's a lot of expense, utilities, duplication of services that is in the facility front. And so we have to look at this slide, and the transportation slide is some of the 2 key drivers that we've assumed in this chart. But there's a lot in play that'll happen over the next 4 to 5 years that will impact whether we're the top line or somewhere in between the bottom line. Does that help explain?
It helps, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Weston, thank you again for the presentation, and I know these numbers just don't jump up onto the PowerPoint. I know they take quite a bit of work, so I want to thank you and your team, but also at the school level as well, because the process starts at the school level in collaboration with our school leaders. And so just want to lift that up and acknowledge that. I think also I'm encouraged by a budget plan that focuses on equity, rooted in our racial equity mindset, efficiency and sustainability. And so this graph right here, I mean, that every presentation should start here, in my opinion, when we think about the long-term sustainability of the district. But so that's my comment. What I wanted to do was flag also, if you look at back in the appendices, slide 51, which is way, way, way back past the funnels. Commissioner Arnold, go past. I just want to lift this slide up. If you look at, now granted, 2021 is a projection. I understand that. But when you look at the 10-year trend here, we're looking at projected enrollment. This is what we're working towards, comparable to where we were 10 years ago as a district as a whole. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that, and that is, to me, that is significant, that we're seeing a restoration, of a flatlining of enrollment decline. That's ending here. And so just want to acknowledge that, and just that we talk about revenue and the foundation of revenue. Obviously, we want to make sure those numbers hit. I know there's a science to that, but want to acknowledge that very important slide. So thanks for adding that to the appendices.
Commissioner Slack.
Thank you, Weston, for all the work you're doing on these slides. Like you said, it takes a lot of time to do all these numbers on a slide and then make funnels for us. I would love to talk about, I guess, slide 14. I lost my spot. Could you talk a little more about when you talked about the property tax on that, 90 million? I didn't quite catch what you were saying about that.
So the operations fund, which funds transportation, the utilities, the repairs and maintenance, some of the significant improvements that we need to make during each year, the administrative operations, the finance team, the HR team, those are funded with property taxes, and the property taxes are received on a semi-annual basis. It's revenue that is paid by homeowners, it's paid by owners of rental properties, and paid by commercial business. owners.
Yeah,
Is that what
okay.
you're looking for?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, are we seeing that move up or are we seeing that move down? We're talking about economics.
Yeah, so if you go past the funnels, go
Making
back
me
to the property
dizzy.
taxes. So here is a slide with the historical current certified assessed value for the district. You can see that back pre-recession, it was around 8.7 million, $9.3 million. Since that time, you can see the economics expansion the last decade, and you'll see that blue line that has increased up to and projected to be 11 billion, I'm sorry, 829 million in 2020. The orange is added because once the voters had passed the referendum, there was assessed value that had not been accessible to the school district through a tax rate. That also has increased. And if we've shown a graph, I believe maybe in the October presentation to the board, you would have seen that orange also increased at a similar rate as the blue. So to answer the question, the assessed values have been going up, and also the property taxes have been going up.
Okay, that's where I want to know. Thank you. And then last thing is, I know that Commissioner Gore talked about your slide 21, or was it 20? Sorry, I'm making you guys dizzy. Yes, 21. Is there any dates that you can give us or a slide that you can present to us or show us like what kind of timeline we're working with for when we're looking at the decrease to happen or when we're projecting it to happen, so then our communities are aware that we may run out of money and we need to know when this is possibly going to happen, and we're doing everything we can to make sure that this doesn't happen with the optimization studies and things we're pushing forward. But could you give us some dates? I think that will be very helpful for us to understand that.
I'd first like to add that at the March 5th Finance Committee, we plan on going in depth on that question, showing some of the variables that Commissioner Gore and others have asked about. So in this slide, the bottom scenario 1 is a timeline that basically takes into account what is today and what our team has seen the board act upon and what our best assumptions are. This slide shows 2027 to be a year where our cash balance and education operations combined breaks into negative territory. And again, there's a lot on the plate, a lot of decisions yet to be made that are in the works. And so we're looking at pushing that timeline out, and ultimate goal with District Priority 6 is financial sustainability, and that's year over year, and that's what's shown in those last two data points or years is where that cash balance stays the same, because that means that revenues and expenditures were the same, they were balanced. That's what we're shooting for.
Thank you, Weston.
Weston, is in that reference to 2027, is that when the referendum expires, the 2018 referendum, or is that a year after that?
The last semi-annual payment, I believe, would be in the June 2027 timeframe.
Okay. Also, I remember from the discussions during the referendum, our calculations on revenue lost to property tax caps to IPS as of 2018 was 116 million. Is that correct?
Cumulative?
Yes.
I can get more information
Yeah,
on that.
and what I'd like to know is an up-to-date number. I think that was the number we were using cumulative to 2018 was around 116. I'd like to know what the
cumulative
additions on that are.
Yep.
Any further questions? Thank you, Weston.
Thank you, Weston.
Thank you, Weston. The third item, item 6.03, is an update on our innovation restart process. Jamie Vandewale, our Chief Portfolio Officer, presented this item on Tuesday. Because, again, we had some commissioners here and some not, she's going to present it again in sort of a truncated, accelerated way, so all commissioners have that update. After she presents, the administration is seeking the board's support to continue moving forward in this restart process toward a formal vote next month.
Thank you, Superintendent Johnson. Good evening, Board of Commissioners. I will, as she said, just highlight very briefly what we covered Tuesday evening, and then take any further questions that you have at that time. So when we were here Tuesday, we hit two objectives. One was just discussing our next steps on the schools that we're recommending for Innovation Restart next year, and the second was an update for the board on the transition process at Imadanen K-8. As you know, we were recommending two schools for restart for next year. That's Stephen Foster School 67, Lewis B. Russell School 48. We spent some time on Tuesday evening just going over the different engagement events with the staff, with those school communities that have been hosted by IPS and that had also been led by the applicants. So we talked about at Stephen Foster School 67, not only what the district had done, but also some of the applicant-led engagement that Ms. Alicia Hervey with the past school had been conducting with the families in that school community. And then we did the same for Lewis B. Russell. So at both sites followed a similar cadence and then talked about the tours that Family Leadership Academy offered, as they would be the prospective partner for this school if the process does continue to move forward.
Jamie, could you step a little closer to the mic?
Yes, sir. Apologies.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. In terms of next steps, we were here to get the board approval for continuing in the process, and then would be continuing engagement at each site, and that would transition to be even more applicant-led. And then, as Superintendent Johnson said, would bring those innovation agreements to you for approval at our March board meeting. As it relates to the Imadanen transition, spent a little bit of time just going over the path that had brought us to this time, from when the board decided to non-renew the agreement with Charter Schools USA for that K-6 Innovation School, all the way through when the State Board of Education voted to return the school to IPS at their January 15th board meeting. Talked about the engagement that Adelante schools had done to date. I think, earlier they said they had 100 community meetings. We only put a handful of them then on the slide in terms of the different community associations they had been meeting with, and also current and potential future community partners that would be embedded and engaged with the school. And then next steps there would be family meetings. The district had hosted one on February 19th, and is going to do another one next Monday, March 2nd. Would continue to be engagement led by the applicant, and then would also propose to bring that innovation agreement to this board in March. Happy to take any lingering questions.
Mr. Arnold.
Thank you, Jamie. Can you talk a little bit about how the restarts get funded? I know, where does their money come from? We hear that we're selling or we're using resources. Can you just kind of walk through that? They're not part of our LEA, and where their money comes from, and also the fact that we do continue to provide some support services since they are serving our IPS population. Can you just kind of talk about that?
Sure. So at the broadest sense, the funding for Innovation Network schools passes through IPS. So in Weston's slide a minute ago, you saw where he referenced the term innovation payments. That simply means it's money that the state of Indiana gives IPS, and our accounting department passes it through directly via wire transfer to those schools. All of the amounts that we share, that we give our innovation schools, are codified within the innovation agreement. So that's a contractual matter. They're all public record. It's very transparent. We give them the pass-through that the state gives us for the tuition funding, as well as the dollars that are attached for student complexity, whether it be, direct CERD or special ed needs. We do not pay innovation partners to manage these schools for us. They only get what they would get from the state, even if they were not in the network. It simply passes through us. When it comes to their federal dollars, Title I, Title II, Title III, and IV, those actually come directly from the federal government, so IPS is not involved in the pass-through there. They do pay us a management fee. It's $25,000 a year, and that's to account for the core central office functions that every innovation school must receive. And then to your point, many of them do continue to maintain some IPS services. If those are services that are funded with our education dollars, they pay us back directly for those, so that we are maintaining a net neutral financial position as it relates to those.
Thank you.
Jamie, that funding is typically on a per pupil basis, is that correct?
Correct, yes, and it's based on ADM, just like traditionally managed schools.
Any other, Commissioner Slack?
In relation to that, Jamie, could you, I guess you may not know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyways. Do you know if our administrations in our innovation schools, when I mean in administration, I mean our assistant principals or CEOs, are they funded higher than our current principals or our neighborhood schools?
I think it varies across them.
Okay. We're given a group of them, say you do 5 of them, 5 neighborhood schools. Can you give us that information, maybe in an email?
Sure, I'll follow
Okay,
up with that.
Thank you. And also, when they get their funding, are they eligible for grants that our public school systems may not be eligible for?
There are some grants from the state, for example. There's a charter school grant program, so obviously as charters, they would be eligible for those. But by and large, traditional public schools can apply for the same kinds of grant fundings that innovation schools can. It's not limited by governance model.
Great, okay, good. Thank you for clarifying that. And then one last question. Could you please give me the statistics when it comes to our innovation schools that we have already with partnership that we partner with? And that their growth from first year to the third year, what the percentages that is, and then also how long those percentages start to tickle up. I'd like to know that.
For all 20 innovation
No,
schools?
no,
or
no,
just
no.
for
The ones that we were talking about
the
in this
restarts.
slide. Yeah.
Sure, I can email that to you. And we measure growth not in percent, but in points that are earned, and we do have that data, so I'll send it.
Thank you.
Question, you're looking at me like you have a question,
No,
Commissioner Arnold.
no, we're going to give comments,
Yes,
correctly?
yeah,
Okay.
absolutely, correct. If we're ready for that, obviously, we can lean left, so I'll start at my left side with Commissioner Slack on comments about sort of the next steps with moving forward.
Man, I'm used to going last. Okay,
Well, you
so.
moved on me.
Right. And when it comes into relationship to restarting our schools, I am not going to say that I believe that restart is the best option for our district in total. I believe that there's things that we can do as a district, and when I talk about those things, I mean that we have teachers that are now going to be out of the union, and teachers that will be losing their jobs are applying for another job with these restarts. And I may be not also in favor of some of our partnerships. I want evidence-proven research models, and I want them to be replicated throughout the district. I believe that every last one of our commissioners wants what's best for our kids. We may not always agree, but I do say that evidence-based research is the best thing for our kids. We have SQR data that can back up our proven models. I would like to see that SQR data used with our high-quality programs. They're also including our racial equity, one of the things that we're already going after. I think that's what we need to do. So I would not be in favor for restarting 67 or 48. And also for the South Side, I still want to hear more from the community. I guess I feel just like the last letter that was spoken on. I am not saying that I don't want programs that work and models that work. I'm not sure about that program to work, considering they don't have any research behind them that shows that that model may work for our kids. That's where I stand.
Arnold?
I have written notes so that I don't forget. As a school board member, I've had to make a lot of difficult decisions. I voted to close schools, eliminate positions, and even terminate people I have considered friends. The recommendation to restart schools is another complicated and difficult decision. One lesson I've learned as a school board member is that every vote taken will make some people happy and other people very unhappy. When the recommendation was first discussed, I maintained an open mind. I attended every meeting held at Stephen Foster, and I listened to every public comment regarding both Stephen Foster and Lewis V. Russell. I expressed my concern about the communication issue at Stephen Foster. It was apparent that information about the SQR process was not shared with stakeholders. Only 2 parents attended the SQR focus group, and teachers seemingly did not understand the importance and implications of the SQR process. It's my recommendation that district administration assume leadership in the future to ensure that every stakeholder at every school identified for an SQR is informed about how the school was selected, how the process will be completed, and the potential actions that might be recommended based on the results. We cannot depend on school leadership to assume this responsibility. The SQR is a district tool to ensure students are receiving the best education possible. We must own the process and manage communication. During the past month, I've continued to ask questions, seek additional information, and sift through internal and external communication regarding Restart at both schools. I considered other options, less drastic than Restart, and thought carefully about the positive and negative implications for the administration's recommendation. I've learned that the recommendation is not based solely on a single test score. There has been a great deal of false and misleading information shared with parents and the public. The administration has spent a great deal of time responding to this information, and that has certainly given me confidence that the recommendation is based on numerous indicators that support Restart. One argument that's been offered is that there are other schools that are worse than the 2 schools recommended for Restart. This indicates to me that perhaps more schools should be recommended for this intervention, not that these 2 schools should not be restarted. Another argument against Restart is that the board and administration have failed these schools. Knowing the status of both schools, it is my belief that Restart is the best decision to break the cycle of failure and create the opportunity for academic success for our students. Every student in our district deserves the best possible education. We cannot talk about equity and continue to allow schools to fail our children. 2 students passing iLearn, 13% at grade level in math, 14% on grade level in reading are not acceptable. Our children deserve better. We know that many supports and interventions have been given to these schools, but those have not been successful. As a school board member, I must do what I believe is the right thing for our children. I want to commend Alicia Hervey. She was placed into a volatile situation at Stephen Foster. She has been diligent and patient with good parents who are concerned about their children. She has invited parents to help interview teachers, and she has met collectively and individually with parents, students, and community partners. I believe she will hire teachers and other school staff members so that students will see familiar faces when they return to school in August. I visited another district school this past week, a school that's also struggled academically. The principal spoke about their school being a family and the love that teachers felt for their students. She told me that they had come to realize that love is not enough. They had to push their students to achieve academically. I believe we all want our teachers and school community to love and support our students. If we love our students, we should also want them to become successful students. I also believe every parent wants their child to grow up to become happy, healthy, and productive citizens. It's our responsibility to help make that happen, and our desire is to be your partner in that endeavor. It is important to know that the commissioners who support Restart of these 2 schools are not anti-parent, anti-teacher, or anti-union. We are pro-children. We believe our children are capable of remarkable things. Our agenda is to ensure that every neighborhood has an excellent school and that every child is afforded a high-quality education. Thank you.
Mr. Hawkins.
Thank you, President O'Connor. I too want to thank each and every member of our community for making your voices heard throughout this process. Thank you for advocating for your children and the families of IPS in the city of Indianapolis. It is my hope that regardless of the outcome, robust dialogues like this will continue for the betterment of our city. I also want to acknowledge Jamie and the FACE team for efforts thus far as well. To the families of Stephen Foster and Lewis B. Russell, I want each of you to know that I do not and will never take these decisions lightly, and I've done my due diligence. Whether in person or over the phone, what I've heard from you is that you want the very best for your children. As a fellow IPS parent, I too want my daughters to be challenged academically, protected, valued, and an opportunity to fulfill their dreams. To Mr. Hinton, you did not ask for this burden. You accepted, you accepted your district's assignment at Lewis B. Russell and continue to show up every day in service to every child that walks through the doors of Lewis B. Russell. Your trusting faith and commitment to the students and families and teachers of Lewis B. Russell is unwavering, and I thank you for this. I am not as acquainted with Principal Pickett. However, I have heard from families that her commitment to the Stephen Foster community is strong. And for that, I want to personally thank you as well. Though I have not been thrilled about the process in its current state, I am committed to a future process that equips parents with the information that they need to better understand the state of their schools, preferably before an SQR is even contemplated. This has been a consistent theme for many commissioners, and I'm confident that district leadership has heard this too. But the truth of the matter is that in IPS, the district I learned ELA pass rate is 22% and 21% for mathematics. Let me say this differently. According to the state of Indiana, 78% of our students are not reading and writing on grade level. And for math, 79% of our students are not on grade level. If you cut this data by race, for our Latino students, ELA pass rate is 20%. In mathematics, 20%. For our Black students, the ELA pass rate is 14%. In mathematics, 13%. Though I do not believe that test scores tell the whole story of any school community, these statistics are intolerable. All you have to do is look around. For generations across this nation, this state, and this city, we have seen what happens to our children and what they lose access to when they are not given the mere opportunity to be prepared academically. And for our Black and brown children especially, the absence of a just educational experience only compounds the negative effects of systems and institutions that were never built for them. So when IPS administration makes a recommendation regarding a school, one school with 7 Fs over the last 8 years, and another having multiple Ds and multiple Fs, and collectively 14 out of 426 students passing both sections of the state test, I cannot look away. We must do better for our children. And let me be clear, regardless of the governance type or whomever operates in any IPS school on a day-to-day basis, if you're not providing the highest quality education possible, then this is not the right space for you. You're either part of improving academic outcomes for children or you are not. As I said before, nearly 80% of our Black and brown children are not reading, writing, and doing math on grade level. So I cannot be a partner to the status quo for children of these schools, and for this reason, I will be supporting the administration's recommendations for Lewis B. Russell and Stephen Foster as presented. Thank you.
Commissioner Collins.
Thank you. I continue to have serious concerns about School 67 and 48 and Emma Donnan moving to charter operators. Philosophically, I believe that educational entrepreneurs may have good ideas about education, but in many cases, these ideas prove to be no better and sometimes worse than the schools they intended to improve. Good ideas have no copyright. If a practice proves effective in one school, we should use that in the others. In my opinion, the influx of charter operators into the IPS district has helped to segregate students and create undue competition for what is perceived to be a better opportunity than that which is provided in our district public schools. There's definitely room for improvement. Every school should have a library and a librarian. Every school should have specials or art, music. But that doesn't necessarily mean to achieve that, we need to outsource. Furthermore, I'm an advocate for teacher unions and union protections for teachers as professionals. Charter schools purposely shut out union membership, creating an at-will teaching environment without consideration of the length of the workday, the class size, or the pay. The erosion of respect for teachers and their professional skills, often eliminating essential collaboration necessary to meet the needs of all students, has proven to create scarcity of licensed teachers in all our classrooms in Indiana. I've heard families speak of substitute teachers in a classroom for extended time, adding to poor student performance, and I want to assure families that IPS is willing and able to create positive working environments through union negotiations. School 67 has shown academic progress that I would like to see continue. I believe that moving to a charter operator is premature. It will create and continue a new insecure environment. As for School 48, academic improvement has been evidenced. Under the current leadership and performance impetus, School 48 should receive the same consideration for consistency and retention of staff and supports for students as we would give to charter schools over 3 or 5 years. Emma Donnan has been under the operational guidance of a partnership with IPS and CSUSA that has been terminated. Donnan parents should have every confidence that stability and improved academics will be the norm. I firmly believe that IPS has the capacity to meet the needs of our district-wide communities, especially if we listen to concerns, work with a goal of academic achievement for all, and focus on equity and learning opportunities. We can do the job well of educating IPS students at a high level of competency. I will be voting no on change to School 67 and 48, and I would like to hear more from the community on any changes with Emma Donnan. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Core.
I would like to first thank the families and staff of the schools that have been stated here for Restart. I know that it took a lot of courage for the principals to stand up and talk about their schools. I know that it took a lot of courage for our leadership to even say that these schools need to be restarted. However, at this time, we are informed as a board of Restart. We have not voted a choice of a restart school. I would like to see more school community input when choosing a new restart. I feel that our schools need to have the information prior to someone walking in the school or someone telling them who's going to be their new restart partners. As I will vote tonight, but reluctantly, I'm looking at the scores and knowing that innovation restarts that we have are not outperforming our neighborhood schools. That causes me some concern. I know that at this point we're moving toward equity. When I see a school where the IPS Black and Hispanic students are outperforming our white students on tests, and I have a concern about changing the leadership in that school. I also have a concern about voting to keep or to restart a school that has on record, and I know that this was an embargo year, but only 2 children passed the ISTEP. I cannot, as a school board member, sit here and agree to that kind of performance from a school. However, I think that each of our schools need more support. They need to be given information before the school is said to be a restart school. The Emma Donnan School, I'm not sure about the restart school that we're talking about that has no proven record to take over that school. So I am not in favor of that. At this time, this evening, I will vote for restart for 48, but not for 67 in Emma Donnan.
Thank you. I'll remind Commissioners, actually, we're not taking votes tonight. This is an informal
For
discussion.
restart,
Yeah.
that's all.
We'll be taking formal votes at the March action session on March 19th, if I'm not correct date. This is sort of the informal inflection point of our process. I had a conversation with Commissioner Moore yesterday, and I believe on Tuesday while I wasn't here, she indicated her support for continuing this process, bringing to the board decisions to be made on March 19th, which I do also. I think we all recognize as board members, these are tough decisions. These are hard decisions. And former State Representative Mayhern, who left apparently early, indicated these are some of the toughest positions. But these are what we're asked to do as board members, is to stand up and let everybody know where we are on these difficult issues. I'm not going to repeat what others have said tonight. I think our knowledge of the situation and the importance of education require us to take bold action. The fact that we know what the numbers are and that we have to stand here and say we are responsible for our schools within our system, and we're going to take what we believe to be actions in the best interest of all of our students. What we do know is, based on the CREDO study and the IUPUI study, which are peer-reviewed, evidence-based studies, is that our innovation schools and our charter schools are performing better than in growth numbers than our other schools, that these are providing better educational alternatives for our students in those schools from where they were. This is a tool that we have used. This is the path we have chosen as a board, by and large, to address our failing schools. And remember that our failing schools mean there are kids who we care about are sitting in those failing schools, in one instance that we're discussing tonight, for 7 years. So I think it is an action we are required to take. We'll take a vote. Everyone will stand behind their vote next month. But I think between the conversations of the board and where I know Commissioner Moore is on this, that we're ready to have a final decision put in front of us for the March board meeting, Superintendent.
Thank you. We'll continue, as Jamie laid out the process and moving forward to bring those final partner agreements to the board for a final vote in March, with great understanding of the difficulty and the complexity and the seriousness of these decisions, and respect the board's perspectives being offered this evening. Thank you. There are 2 items in unfinished business, and we'll move to that section. Item 7.01 are updates to I'm sorry, that's very disrespectful. Item 7.01.
Open comment is closed.
Is an update to our human resource policies. Mindy Schlegel, Chief Human Resources Officer, presented on these updates last month, and they've now sat for the required 30 days needed before board action. There were no questions on Tuesday evening. The administration requests the board's approval of the policies as presented.
Do I have a motion to approve resolution number 7847, approving the changes to human resource policies as presented?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries.
Item 7.02 are the updated Finance and Audit Committee charters. Weston Young, Chief Financial Officer, presented on these updated charters last month as well, and they've now also sat for the required 30 days needed before board action. There were no questions on Tuesday, and the administration requests the board's approval for those charters as presented.
Do I have a motion to approve resolution number 7848, amending the Finance Committee charter and adopting the Audit Committee charter as presented?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Good.
About, I had a question about.
Yes, Commissioner Collins.
Was that about the audit? The audit of
It was just establishing the Audit
The
Committee.
committee.
Okay, yeah.
Any further questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries.
There are 3 items in new business. Oh, that's right, 2. Sorry, the board approved the textbook adoption in the general purchasing report. So we will skip 8.01. Very excited to move that forward. You have a comment?
Yeah, I do, and I know we've already voted on that, but I did want to clarify, just for purpose of the conversation, that I appreciated the affirmation, the fact that we talked about the adoption process of ELA, that we're acknowledging the fact that the curriculum will ensure that our children see themselves, and particularly children of color, will be reflected in the curriculum, which is, I want to lift that up again, but also what I wanted to clarify was that, so as I understand, for our magnet schools that have I'm sure the best way to put it, but sort of have different instructional model, correct, yeah, thank you for saying that. As we look at, on one of the slides, we talked about sort of those sort of selective criteria. For our magnet schools, will the selective criteria, I'm just trying to understand how magnet schools will make their decisions or how they will petition to the district for those, for ELA curriculum, also ensuring and really trying to understand sort of how that selective criteria is considered in perhaps that approval process. I'm trying to understand.
So the schools had the option to complete what we called an opt-out form. So for instance, a Montessori who has just a very different instructional model where a traditional textbook wouldn't necessarily fit into their day-to-day curriculum, they were able to provide us with rationale for why they would select something else, and then also go through a 6-year process of how they would use those textbook dollars to still replenish the materials that they need to ensure that we still have the financial equity across our schools, even if they're using a different resource. Okay. So that has been established, and the curriculum team has taken them through that process.
Thank you.
Oh, okay, item 8.02, sorry, is the cancellation and receipt of outstanding checks. Weston presented a brief update on the state required by statute action on Tuesday evening, and the administration requests the board's approval of the cancellation and receipt of outstanding checks.
Do you have a motion to approve the cancellation and receipt of outstanding checks as presented?
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries.
Item 8.03 is a request for the board's approval of 2 out-of-country trips, one for Shortridge High School and one for Crispus Attucks High School. Our board policy requires the board's explicit approval for any trips out of the country. Staff from Shortridge High School shared additional details about their trip to Belize on Tuesday evening, and Greg Newland can share, if you'd like, some additional details on Crispus Attucks. Ms. Franklin had a choir concert tonight. To Mexico. I also want to flag, in light of some of the concerns regarding international travel, particularly at this moment in time, that the district ensures we are monitoring any information from the U.S. State Department regarding safety in traveling abroad, and making sure we're following those guidelines closely.
Commissioner Hawkins?
Yeah, just thank you for that update. In light of the virus that is existing in the world, and it is scary, and so in general, I just, it'd be interesting, I think, be appreciative or helpful to sort of understand how the district, I know we've had other either outbreaks or pandemics like SARS, like other events that have happened before, but what is our approach, and as we think about sort of informing our schools district-wide, if you could articulate the approach, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'm going to ask Brent Freeman. Oh,
Okay.
He was already up here. We knew this question might be coming.
Can you hear me? Okay. Okay. So we follow CDC guidelines, and so we're tracking. They have some really updated information on their website about the coronavirus in particular. And then we locally use the Marion County Public Health Department, and that's sort of the resource for how to respond to outbreaks or the potential of a pandemic or an epidemic sort of situation. So we're being proactive, and the basics are the same as flu is good hand washing and good hygiene and good sort of coughing into the elbow and not shaking hands after those sorts of things. And so we're reminding our schools about some of those basic precautions, and then also just monitoring the situation.
Thank you very much. I think also just, and maybe this is part of the protocol, but in bathrooms, hallways, do we post, signage or anything like that throughout the building as well? I know that there are customs, but sometimes seeing it on the mirror while before you wash your hands is important. So is that part of the protocol as well?
I would ask Scott that, but I don't see Scott in here.
He's out
tonight,
washing his
so-
hands right now.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And so I would defer to Mr. Martin.
Commissioner Slack, did you have a question?
Yes, I did. I wanted to know if we had any clarification on the Longfellow going with Christmas Addicts. I know that was inside the contract, and are we going to change those numbers as well to match what the speakers were saying?
Greg, can you speak to that question?
Good evening, all.
Good evening.
Yes, Commissioner Slack, they will not be able to attend this particular trip, so we are amending those numbers.
Okay, so we're going to just have 7 or 8 kids
Yes, ma'am.
going?
8,
Okay.
6 of the 8 have all of their paperwork, passports, and everything's completed. The other 2 are working to get those done.
Okay. All right, thank you so much.
Commissioner Collins?
I was wondering, when, at one time, when you left the country, you had to get all kinds of shots and everything. And then, just to bring in what I heard on the news, was that, that they recommend everybody has a flu shot. Is that how does that work with the kids going out of the country?
I know, I don't know the details, but much to your point into what Superintendent Johnson said earlier, we monitor with the CDC, all the things that are suggested, we do those things, and the kids get those shots, vaccinations, all that they need to go.
Any further questions?
Thank y'all.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
One more. Item 8.04.
But I don't think we've approved that one.
Oh,
have
you
we?
sure didn't. Sorry.
So I am looking for, is that 8.03?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a motion to approve the out-of-county, so it's not assigned a number, out-of-county field trip,
So moved.
out of country, sorry,
Oh.
or out-of-county.
Sorry.
It's getting late.
Sorry, it's late, I got back late yesterday. So do I have, let me repeat this just so I say it right, so I don't say it like I did in Greenfield. Do I have a motion to approve the out-of-country field trip?
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Any further discussion about moving out of Marion County? Hearing
No,
none,
I
all the,
am-
all the,
I do. I am so happy, you can't get it out. I am so happy that we're having our kids be able to go out and see other places of the world, especially outside of Indianapolis, Indiana.
Right.
And I am happy about the scholarship that Christmas Addicts does, and I hope that we try to follow that process through our other schools, Shortridge and Washington. I think that at Tech, I think that would be a great thing for our kids to do.
Good, and agree to.
I know, he's reminding me, I just want to affirm what Commissioner Slack said, having just gotten back from taking my daughter to Argentina for a semester abroad, that a lifelong learner, you never stop learning, and it is a phenomenal experience that everyone should have the opportunity, and we should continue to dig for resources to make sure that everyone has that opportunity. It has been moved and seconded that we approve the out-of-country field trips. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion carries.
Okay, now item 8.04. This is the district's memorandum of understanding with the Indianapolis Chamber of Commerce. This MOU was initially approved by the board in September of 2018. but there have been a number of changes since that time within our district, including board composition, superintendent shift, and some district leadership shifts. So as such, we wanted to ensure that the MOU aligns with our current structures and then reflects the continued development of our partnership and collaboration with the Indianapolis Chamber of Commerce. Andrew was going to add also a few additional comments.
Yep. Good evening. So in the summer of 2019, we adopted a one-year strategic plan with 6 strategic priorities. One of those was sustainable finance and operations. So core to our commitment is to provide a world-class education that must be supported through an efficient, sustainable, and strategic allocation of resources. So you heard Weston talk a lot about that earlier. The updated terms to this partnership represent that alignment between our strategic priorities and the important work that was outlined on the onset of this partnership with the Indy Chamber. We will continue to work in collaboration with the Indy Chamber and believe that the revised structure of the partnership will present the best opportunity to execute with effectiveness moving forward.
Do I have a motion to approve the updated Indy Chamber Partnership MOU as presented?
Excuse me. I'm sorry, in the MOU, is this for 1 year or how long? The one that we're fixing to.
Yep. I believe.
Is it for a year?
That it is for, sorry, I'm trying to see what our exact time frame. Oh, through July 31, 2021. So for a year.
Could I ask for order in that we're. Please. Thank you. July 31st.
Oh, I'm sorry. July 31, 2021.
21, so it is a year. Thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't remember.
So, sorry, that's right. Do I have a motion to approve the updated Indy Chamber Partnership MOU
So
as
moved.
presented?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Any discussion or questions?
I do. Okay, so this should just continue our partnership with them, consulting us, correct? For 1 year, right? And this is for that one, for Sarah's position, correct?
For Sarah's position.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any further discussion? Mark Fisher was here with us, but I think oh, there he is. Saw his extremely large grape in the back. Mark Fisher from the Chamber of Service. Thank you for the work you've done with us, and look forward to continuing to work with you for the following year. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. We are at closing comments. Does any commissioner wish to offer any closing comments this evening? Slack?
I just appreciate everyone's ability to be patient and throughout all this process. And I know it's been long, and I appreciate our team and all the work they've done. The FACE team for coming out, helping parents through it. I know it's been a learning process as a district in total. Even though we don't always agree, I have mounds of respect for our team and for every commissioner that sits up here. And I think that I appreciate being out there and getting the authentic engagement that we talk so highly about with our community. I've went to majority of the sessions, and I've seen us grow time after time. And I know we have improving to do, but I've seen us grow, and I'm proud of that. Thank you, Superintendent Johnson, as well.
Any other comments from commissioners? If not, Superintendent, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'll be very short. And first, I apologize. It's not my job to speak out from the platform. I was out of order, so my apologies for that. February has continued to be a very busy month, and we are excited that it was Black History Month, and we were able to partner with the Pacers and Honda to celebrate Black History Month and recognize some of our community leaders across our city, like IPS alumni Dennis Bland, Kurt Moore, Patricia Payne, and Janice Hinkle, among others. We also recognized alumni like Broadway actor Stephen Taylor and international opera singer Angela Brown, who are all IPS alumni. So very proud to be a part of a district that has produced so many people who positively impact the lives of others. I always do a little bit of an athletics update. It's been an exciting time. Shortridge High School won our first ever IPS Girls Swimming Championship, so congratulations to Shortridge. Yes. We had 2 wrestlers, Joe Rice and Jeff Nixon from Arsenal Tech, who advanced to semi-state in the wrestling tournament, so congratulations to them.
Yay, wrestlers.
Our elementary and middle school girls basketball tournaments are underway. I think the championships will be held next week, so excited for them. And then our high school boys start sectionals next week as well. So we've got a busy 3 to 4 weeks ahead of us, and then we'll all get a little bit of rest over spring break the second half of March. That's it.
Great. Our next meeting will be our budget public hearing and innovation school briefing on Monday, March 9th, beginning at 5 p.m. in this room. Having completed all the items on the agenda, this meeting stands adjourned.